Wang Lin suddenly moved. At the same time, the two copies started to use their magical treasures. Wang Lin had already arrived before them. Meanwhile, his hand formed the seal from the memories of the ancient god. Then he shouted, "Break!" Suddenly, a strong force came from the seal formed by Wang Lin's hand. Under the pressure of the force, the treasures that the two copies tried to activate were suddenly paused for a bit. Shortly after, Wang Lin's body charged like a meteor toward the two copies. The two copies' expressions didn't change and they started to activate the same technique. Wang Lin rammed into the one of the copies with no hesitation. When they collided, that copy immediately collapsed into dust. The copy Wang Lin targeted was the one who took out the scroll. From his point of view, the scroll was very mysterious. He didn't want to give the copy a chance to use it and cause unnecessary trouble. The other copy controlled the black sword and attacked Wang Lin. The moment the flying sword came toward him, Wang Lin stopped and moved his right hand in a circle. An illusionary circle appeared. The restriction quickly grew larger and stood between Wang Lin and the flying sword. Shortly after, Wang Lin charged toward the other copy. It realized something was wrong and quickly escaped. Wang Lin started to chase the copy. However, the copy obviously couldn't mimic the power Wang Lin gained from the body reconstruction from the ancient god's inheritance. So no matter if it was speed or physical power, the copy couldn't compare with Wang Lin. As a result, after a short while, the copy was rammed into by Wang Lin and collapsed. Wang Lin's charge didn't stop. After checking his body and his G realm, he didn't want to waste any more time here and charged out like lightning. Wang Lin continued to fly through the remaining 70 miles. Sonic booms could be heard as he flew. At the same time, copies appeared one after another before him. However, all of them were either smashed by his body, or, for the ones farther away, destroyed by his G realm's red lightning. For more than 70 miles, none of the copies could slow Wang Lin down even a tiny bit. After a few short breaths, Wang Lin broke out of the chaotic broken stars ring. To others, the chaotic broken stars might contain a lot of power, but to Wang Lin, if this place couldn't copy his G realm or the strength of his reconstructed body, then it was powerless against him. This ring was formed by a large divine avatar technique, but Wang Lin's G realm was a heaven-defying existence, so if the divine technique couldn't copy it, then it was useless against him. As for the ancient god's body, if this ring could copy it, then the ancient gods wouldn't be so mysterious. The person that laid down this formation couldn't possibly compare with the ancient god's power, so how could the formation copy it? Wang Lin, with his G realm and ancient god's body, charged out of the ring. He felt a ripple in his heart. When he went into the land of the ancient god, he was only someone at the core formation stage. Now, not only had he learned restrictions and obtained a body like the ancient god, but his G realm soul had also formed a core. As a result, although Wang Lin might not be able to beat a nascent soul expert, he was confident that he wouldn't die in a fight against one. In addition, Wang Lin felt that even against a spirit-forming stage expert, he still stood a chance at winning. If he used all of these mysterious chants and techniques properly with his magical treasures, then he could defeat someone at the spirit-forming stage. Before, if he met a nascent soul expert, even if he ran, his only road was death. A nascent soul cultivator's power came after the body formed a nascent soul. The spiritual power in the body undergoes a huge change. At the nascent soul stage, a sliver of spiritual power could match all of the spiritual power that someone at the core formation stage could muster. In addition, the most notable technique nascent soul experts could use is instant movement. This instant movement technique was what allowed nascent soul experts to be the peak in a third-ranked country. In addition, nascent soul cultivators could use many more techniques than core formation experts. And even if they used the same technique, a nascent soul cultivator's power was hundreds to thousands of times more powerful. It could be said that in the history of cultivation, only a few people at the core formation stage could beat people at the nascent soul stage. Even with some heaven-defying treasure, at most, they could only protect themselves. After all, the power of a magical treasure is closely related to the user's cultivation level. The nascent soul stage is a dividing line in the cultivation world. Only after forming a nascent soul can cultivators truly be considered strong. This shows how important forming a nascent soul is. Meanwhile, the difference between the three realms is also very large. Each stage is at least 10 times stronger than the previous. In other words, a late-stage nascent soul cultivator is about 10 times stronger than a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, and 100 times stronger than an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. This is a bit overly simplified though, because it doesn't factor in magical treasures. This was all a guess by Wang Lin. He wasn't sure if he could really beat a nascent soul expert. After all, he was only at the late stage of core formation. But since his G-realm soul had increased greatly, his reconstructed body contained the power of the ancient god, and factoring in the various magical treasures Wang Lin possessed, he hesitated in his uncertainty. After Wang Lin broke out of the ring, he decided not to go find a nascent soul expert to try it out. He thought that would be extremely stupid. Wang Lin gazed at Qian Kuan and Yun Fei. He never really thought about core formation cultivators, even before he entered the land of the ancient god, and even less so now. He didn't have any interest in the problems between these two people, but he did need someone to answer his question, so he asked, "Where is the closest city?" The moment Wang Lin walked out, Qian Kuan revealed a very respectful expression, but his heart was very tense. When he heard Wang Lin's question, he wanted to answer, but Yun Fei answered before him. "Senior, there aren't any cities within a 10,000-mile radius of this place. Although more than 30,000 miles to the west, there is a city called Qilin." As Yun Fei was talking, she moved a few strands of her hair behind her ear, revealing her feminine charm. Unfortunately, this act didn't attract Wang Lin at all. After Yun Fei noticed that Wang Lin's gaze didn't linger on her at all, she felt a bit disappointed, but wasn't about to give up. Mou knew that she wasn't perfect, but she was very skilled in bed, otherwise, the master of the enchanted palace wouldn't be so enchanted with her. She secretly clenched her jaw. Ever since Wang Lin broke through the ring, she never stopped trying to guess his cultivation level. If she could find someone to hide behind, then even if the enchanted palace came to chase after her, they'd be forced to withdraw. She believed that if this person would be willing to help her, then even wiping out the enchanted palace would be possible, but all of this was her fantasy. Wang Lin obviously didn't know what she was thinking. He looked toward the west and asked, "Does this Qilin city have spirit-forming stage cultivators?" "No, senior. There are no spirit-forming stage cultivators in Qilin city. In fact, in this Sea of Devils, let alone Qilin city, even in the top 10 cities, there aren't many spirit-forming stage cultivators." This time, Qian Kuan answered before Yun Fei. Before, he regretted letting Yun Fei answer before him. If he didn't say anything this time and made the senior angry, then it would be very bad for him. Wang Lin's eyes wavered. He muttered, "No spirit forming. Senior, 200 years ago, some of the well-known spirit-forming experts in the Sea of Devils disappeared into the chaotic broken stars, so there aren't many remaining." Qian Kuan quickly answered, but after he finished speaking his expression suddenly changed. His eyes grew wide as he looked at Wang Lin with a mystified look. But quickly, his forehead started to sweat and he lowered his head, but his heart was in complete chaos. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. His eyes became cold. He spoke with a voice as cold as the icy wind from hell. "Which spirit-forming cultivators disappeared into this chaotic broken stars ring 200 years ago?" Yun Fei also revealed a surprised expression. She also remembered the rumor from 200 years ago. She tightened her red lips and said, "Senior Junior here knows some of what happened 200 years ago. The Poison King's enchanted palace's prince Meng Qingfan, Qi Mei City's head, Duanmuji Xiantian Sect's head, Six Desire Devil Lord, and Tianma Dong's old monster ancient emperor. Those four met here and disappeared together. Many of their successors came here in these 200 years, but found no clues." Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but his heart was stunned. 200 years, unexpectedly, he had already been in the land of the ancient god for 200 years. Wang Lin put away his feelings of regret and placed his gaze on Qian Kuan. This person acted a bit weird earlier and said that he was from the Poison King's enchanted palace, so his senior must be Hunchback Meng. Under Wang Lin's gaze, Qian Kuan's legs grew weak and he fell kneeling on the ground. He said with fear and respect, "Senior, this junior doesn't know anything and won't say anything. Senior, please spare me." Wang Lin's eyes were cold. He glanced at Qian Kuan and asked, "Is your master Hunchback Meng?" Qian Kuan's body trembled. If he had any doubts before, they all disappeared when he heard that question. It had to be said that the Poison King's enchanted palace's Meng Qingfan was a very well-known name in the Sea of Devils. No matter which senior, when talking about Meng Qingfan, they would refer to him as Senior Meng. Even among the people with the same amount of fame, they would at least refer to him as Prince Meng. Besides reaching the spiriting forming stage, which was very rare in the Sea of Devils, there were his poison techniques. These poison attacks were hard to guard against. They were tasteless and colorless. Many had died of these poisons before they even realized what had happened. Adding to all of this was Meng Qingfan's eccentric personality. One wrong word and he would wipe out your whole sect. There once was a sect in the Sea of Devils. Although they didn't have any spirit-forming experts, they had quite a few late-stage nascent soul experts, making them one of the strongest sects in the Sea of Devils. One of the sect's nascent soul disciples met Hunchback Meng. Forget not knowing his identity, he even mocked Hunchback Meng. That night, Meng Qingfan walked into the sect by himself. 1 hour later, when he left, all 3,960 people of the sect, including the inner disciples, outer disciples, all of the workers, and even those late-stage nascent soul experts all died. When Meng Qingfan killed people, he liked to leave behind the reason. That was why others knew about the things he had done. As a result, Meng Qingfan's ruthlessness would make the face of anyone in the Sea of Devils pale. There were only a few people in the Sea of Devil that dared to call him Hunchback Meng. After Qian Kuan heard Wang Lin's words just now, he was even more sure about his guesses. Qian Kuan didn't dare to lie and quickly said, "Say, Senior, Elder Meng is indeed my sect's ancestor." After saying this, he clenched his jaw. Without waiting for Wang Lin to speak, he spoke the secret he knew. It seemed that a few years ago, Qian Kuan heard the current head talk about ancestor Meng Qingfan, that he wasn't missing but went into the chaotic broken stars, and it seemed that it was the second time he had gone there. He also heard that if a large rift were to appear in the chaotic broken stars, that means the ancestor has come back. Qian Kuan bore this in mind when he first heard it, but a long time had passed, and it didn't have anything to do with him, so he had gradually forgotten. As a result, when he saw the rift open, he felt a sense of familiarity, but didn't think too deeply about it. But after he answered Wang Lin's question, he felt as if he was hit by lightning and immediately remembered it. This was why his expression suddenly changed. A rift opened up in the chaotic broken stars, but the ancestor didn't return. Even the other spirit-forming cultivators like Duanmu, Six Desire Devil Lord, and Ancient Emperor didn't come out. Instead, it was this young man that appeared. This caused him to speculate many things. After Wang Lin finished listening, he muttered to himself, which caused Qian Kuan to become very tense. Qian Kuan clenched his jaw. He moved his hand over his bag of holding and suddenly threw out black sand. He started to escape without looking back. The black sand released a fishy smell. After it appeared, it immediately made a minor exploding sound. Wang Lin laughed at him in his heart. He didn't dodge the sand but slammed his bag of holding and his poisonous sword came out. The poisonous sword quickly flew through the black sands a few times, causing all of the black sand to suddenly light up in a green flame. Sounds of breaking could be heard. All of the black sand turned into green smoke and was absorbed by the poisonous sword. All of this happened very quickly. In almost the same instant that Qian Kuan threw out the black sand and started to escape, Wang Lin's poisonous sword had already absorbed it all. This time Qian Kuan's heart shook again. His body started to release a cold feel. He quickly urged his spirit power to move faster. Wang Lin's face remained bleak. He pointed his finger at this brow. Suddenly, from his consciousness, flew out a black shadow. The black shadow shot out of Wang Lin's consciousness like lightning and out through the star. The star on his forehead. The devil Su Ligua came out with a joyous scream that echoed in the surrounding. "I'm finally free. I almost bored to death. Boy, don't run. Let your grandpa Su devour you. In order to repay you for allowing me to come out again, I'll let you die with as little pain as possible." The moment the voice could be heard, the devil Su Ligo became like smoke and caught up to Qian Kuan. Qian Kuan had an aghast expression when Su Ligo jumped on him. After Su Ligo devoured Qian Kuan's soul, he took the golden core formation and bag of holding and returned to Wang Lin. Su Ligo showed an expression of trying to please, but in his heart, He didn't want to give up the core formation. Wang Lin glanced at the core formation, then threw it into his mouth. The moment the core formation entered his mouth, the ancient god tactic started to activate, and he completely absorbed it in a few breaths of time. Wang Lin could feel that 80% of the core formation was absorbed by his body, and only 20% became spiritual power. After absorbing the core formation, Wang Lin put away the bag of holding. He pointed at Qian Kuan's body as a small fireball came out of his finger. The fireball quickly landed on Qian Kuan's body and turned it to dust. When Yunfei saw all of this, her face became even more pale, and she unconsciously took a few steps back. In her opinion, this white-haired youth's cultivation level was too deep, especially the magical treasure he had used. She recognized that it was a nascent soul. It was reasonable that Yunfei was mistaken. The devil Su Ligao's soul was refined from a nascent soul. That, coupled with the fact that Su Ligao met quite a few ancestors in the third realm, that caused him to change a bit. And more importantly, Wang Lin had formed his soul core. Although a soul core didn't raise the cultivation level of a soul devourer at all, it allowed the soul devourer to create wandering spirits. This soul core also benefited the wandering spirits that the soul devourer controlled. Wang Lin killed Qian Kuan because he didn't want the news of him leaving the chaotic broken stars to be known. What terrified Yunfei the most was that Wang Lin had swallowed the core formation. Even the head of the Poison King's enchanted palace wouldn't just swallow a core formation without refining it with other medications first. She had never seen something like this before. Right now, Wang Lin exerted even more pressure than Qian Kuan. Wang Lin's gaze landed on Yunfei, and her body instantly shivered. She didn't dare look at Wang Lin. He calmly said, "I helped you kill Qian Kuan, how will you repay me?" Shaking, Yunfei raised her head and forced herself to calm down. She forced a smile, but she couldn't stop her voice from trembling. She said, "Say Senior, Junior doesn't know Qian Kuan." Wang Lin didn't say a word and only calmly looked at her. Yunfei immediately saw the coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. She suddenly became very nervous. The white-haired youth seemed to be a very ruthless person. He wouldn't show her any mercy because she was a woman. She knew that these people were impartial. If she didn't have anything of interest to them, then the only road left for her was death. Yunfei had an icy personality herself. She already knew in her heart that Wang Lin didn't want the news of him coming out of the chaotic broken stars to spread. Since Qian Kuan was already dead, she was the only loose end remaining. She bit her lower lip. Her face showed a decisive expression as she took out a piece of jade and showed it to Wang Lin. "Senior, this jade contains some very precious pill recipes. This is my Qi Huang sect's greatest treasure." Wang Lin took the piece of jade and scanned it with his divine sense, then looked at Yunfei. Yunfei felt bitter in her heart. She realized that just this piece of jade wasn't enough to move Wang Lin's heart. Her mind quickly worked and said, "Senior Junior grew up in Qilin City and has a house there. Junior also knows Qilin City very well. So if Senior has any requests, Junior can help." After she finished speaking, she was afraid that Wang Lin didn't know the rules of Qilin City and continued, "Senior, did you know that if a cultivator doesn't have resident status in Qilin City, they can only stay there for 3 days? Then, every day after would cost 10 low-quality spirit stones. Even then, they can only stay for 10 days total, but Junior here has resident status in Qilin City. With Junior here, Senior can stay in Qilin City as long as Senior wants. Also, Junior is very familiar with this Sea of Devils, including the locations of cities and the strength of cultivators, as knowing these things was Junior's job at the Enchanted Palace. It can be said that there isn't much that this Junior doesn't know about the Sea of Devils. If it wasn't for me being chased in a state of panic by Qian Kuan, Junior wouldn't have come to the chaotic broken stars." After Yunfei said all of this in one breath, she nervously looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin pondered for a while. He casually reached out with his hand and Yunfei's body involuntarily moved toward him. Meanwhile, his right wrist turned and his fingers touched together. With a wave, an illusionary circle appeared and landed on Yunfei's brow. This restriction will activate once every 3 days. Every time it actives, your entire body's blood will flow backwards. Your cultivation will go into chaos and in your heart, a 5-star fire will be lit. If it isn't stopped by me within a minute, then your entire body will become a pool of blood." Yunfei's face became pale, but she soon calmed herself down after taking a few deep breaths. Yunfei knew that her life was safe for now. Wang Lin calmly said, "Take me to Qilin City." Yunfei nodded and stood back on the flying sword. She carefully led the way in front of Wang Lin. Wang Lin didn't need a flying sword to fly, but looked like he was being carried by a gentle wind. This unique way of flying was in fact the use of the attraction technique that he had mastered all those years ago. Now, after so many years, even using the words complete mastery to describe the way he used this technique doesn't seem fitting. To be more accurate, the technique under his use was getting close to perfection. Like now, even if he used a flying sword, his speed wouldn't be much faster. Using a flying sword would consume more spiritual power, but because the attraction technique was the most basic technique, the amount of spiritual power it consumed was almost negligible for a late-stage core formation expert. If one didn't look closely, they couldn't even detect any use of spiritual power at all. It could be said that the amount of spiritual power consumed in one breath's time was only 1/10,000th the amount spiritual power his core formation produced in the same amount of time. After Yunfei saw this way of flying, her heart couldn't help but shake again. Her thought of escaping through luck in the future diminished a lot. In reality, the distance of 30,000 miles wasn't a very long distance, but after flying for a whole day, Wang Lin still hadn't found this Qilin City, so his face immediately darkened. Yunfei secretly screamed in her heart. She forgot that when she stated the distance of Qilin City from the chaotic broken stars, there was a dark blue aura ring that would randomly appear. The frequency of the aura wasn't very high, but when it appeared, it covered a wide area. Although there was no danger within the aura, your divine sense was trapped in your body, so it was very easy to get lost. Outside the aura, Yunfei explained all this very nervously. She was afraid of making Wang Lin angry. Finally, she suggested to go around it. This way, although it would take more time, wouldn't be more than 5 days. After hearing this, Wang Lin sent out his divine sense and scanned the area. Then his divine sense formed a straight line toward the aura. He soon saw the aura. After checking the aura, he confirmed what Yunfei just said and nodded in agreement with her suggestion. Yunfei let out a breath and quickly led the way. Wang Lin was not a talkative person, and Yunfei was too scared to speak. As a result, in 3 days, the two almost never spoke to each other. At noon of the 3rd day, the restriction on Yunfei's body activated. She confirmed what Wang Lin had said before, and felt the pain of her blood flowing backward and her spiritual power going into complete chaos. She even felt that there seemed to be a fire that was going to melt her body. Good thing that the moment it was activated, Wang Lin stopped it. After experiencing this, the last bit of Yunfei's rebellious hopes completely faded away. Wang Lin completely knew what she was thinking in her heart. Although controlling people's hearts wasn't his speciality, when it came to controlling devils, he was right at home. The method he used on Yunfei was not that different from raising a devil. It was basically the same. Wang Lin kept Yunfei because she had some use. If she didn't, then to prevent the news of him leaving the chaotic broken stars, he would have already sent her to the underworld and would have kept playing the game of cat and mouse with Chen Kuan. Wang Lin knew that if he were to let the disciples of Duanmu, 6th Desire Devil Lord, Hunchback Meng, an ancient emperor know that he came out of the land of the ancient god, the future would hold nothing but trouble for him. Among those people, there will certainly be someone who knows the truth about what's inside the chaotic broken stars. Once Wang Lin has been exposed, he will be hunted endlessly by the disciples of those sections. If all those disciples were below the nascent soul stage, then they wouldn't pose much of a threat. However, once nascent soul disciples show up, it would definitely be troublesome. In conclusion, complete silence was a much better choice. It would save a lot of trouble and he would be a lot safer. It wasn't that Wang Lin wanted to kill, but he was forced to kill for his own survival. He still regretted one thing in his heart, although this thing happened many years ago. Back in the day, in the country of Zhao, when he had just left the Hengyu sect, he met his former friend Zhang Hu. He had killed Zhang Hu's teacher to save Zhang Hu. Many mortals witnessed that scene. Zhang Hu's decision was to kill all those mortals, but Wang Ling didn't have the heart, and instead, used a spell that made people lose some of their memories. Even after many years, every time he thought about it, he felt pain in his heart, as if it were being drilled by millions of insects. He more than once mocked his own ignorance back then, and he more than once hated his own flawed sense of morality back then. He didn't know that old GMO had casted a spell on Zhang Hu's teacher that allowed him to see everything that happened after Zhang Hu's teacher's death. Wang Lin thought that the issue came from the mortals because he allowed them to live. In exchange, he got old man Jimo's anger, which resulted in Donghua great-great-grandson to come after him. Otherwise, how would Wang Lin have brought such disaster by offending a nascent soul cultivator when he was only at the qi condensing stage? That incident caused his whole family to be wiped out. The only thing left of his parents were 2 soul fires. And he had even died once. All of this catastrophe was caused by one moment of weakness. From the moment of his death, Wang Lin had a change of heart. If he could go back in time, he wouldn't stop Zhang Hu from killing those witnesses. No one is born ruthless, no one is born to be cautious and wily, and no one is born cruel and cold-hearted. All of this is caused by one's life experiences. If people were given the choice, few would choose to be perceived as a ruthless, bold, decisive, cold-hearted person, who's strong-willed and as cunning as a fox. Since the time Wang Lin left the county of Zhao, including the time he had spent in the outer world battlefield and in the land of the ancient god, more than 400 years had passed by. More than 400 years was enough for someone's soul to completely change. The him now was a completely different person from the little boy from the Hung Yu sect in the county of Zhao. Wang Lin sometimes thought that if fourth uncle hadn't give his son Spot to him all those years ago, then he would probably be a pile of dirt at this point. However, his road wouldn't have been as difficult as it was now. He would have gone and taken the state exam to enter the court, and his parents wouldn't have met their ends. They would have gained respect once their son entered the court, and the wealth that follows. They would have lived calm but satisfying and prideful lives. Wang Lin took a deep breath and sorted out all the emotion that surfaced at once in his heart. Old man GMO, Donghua Pu Nanzi, and some of the other cultivators from the country of Zhao, that demonic family's experts, and even the corpse sect head were people Wang Lin must kill. In addition, Wang Lin also had some doubts about how Donghua had found his family. He will thoroughly investigate this matter, and anyone related will be added to his kill list. Under Yun Fei's guidance on the 4th day, they saw from a distance an ancient heavenly beast. Comparing Nando City to this was like comparing a child learning to walk to a giant. Qilin City was the size of hundreds of Nando cities. From a distance, it looked like an ancient wild beast laying on the ground and giving off a sense of majesty. Qilin City looked like a large Qilin beast formed by dark black rocks. The Qilin beast's eyes looked as if they contained intelligence and life. Anyone who saw it for the first time would be amazed. The huge Qilin beast laid on the ground with numerous scales on its back. Each of those scales was a cave. Inside the Qilin beast was the town square. Within it, almost all of the materials and magical treasures in the Sea of Devil were sold. Outside the Qilin beast was a circular mountain range that surrounded and protected Qilin City. In the north, east, south, and west sides of the mountain, people used a great amount of power to open up a tunnel in the mountain for entering the city. Yun Fei saw Wang Lin's gaze land on Qilin City, so she quickly gave an introduction. No one knows the original Qilin City. Rumor has it that before the water in the Sea of Devils became mist, this city already existed. Wang Lin scanned the city and his eyes landed on the Qilin's eyes. He was stunned. He slapped his bag of holding with his right hand and a piece of jade appeared. This piece of jade was given to Wang Lin by Li Muwen as a parting gift. The jade contained all of the information from the Donghua sect. After he viewed the jade, he realized that the Qilin beast had similar effects to the Donghua sect's green dragon. Much later, he withdrew his gaze. He started to float casually toward the mountains that surrounded Qilin City. Yun Fei quickly followed on her flying sword. Outside the gate of the east side of the mountain stood 2 rows of cultivators in blue robes. Wang Lin scanned them and found that all of them were at the middle foundation stage. They coldly looked at the people coming and going. All visitors showed a Qilin-shaped jade. Only after it had been examined could they pass. Among those visitors there were a few core formation cultivators, but those blue-robed cultivators maintained their cold looks without any signs of respect. Oddly, the core formation cultivators didn't mind it much at all either. This strange scene quickly attracted Wang Lin's attention. Yun Fei quickly whispered to Wang Lin, "These cultivators are all guards sent by the Qilin City Mansion. Within Qilin City there is no other large group like the City Mansion. So within Qilin City, the city government controls everything. Any of the sects outside Qilin City must follow the city's rules if they wish to enter. Wang Lin nodded. Under his analysis, he thought that the reason for this was that the city mansion was too powerful. That was why the guards outside were like they were, and even the core formation cultivators don't dare to cause any trouble. Not long after, it was Wang Lin and Yun Fei's turn. She took out her jade and, after paying a certain amount of spirit stones, she led Wang Lin to the city. When Wang Lin walked through the gate, he spread out his divine sense and found 2 late-stage core formation cultivators hiding nearby. Those 2 core formation cultivators didn't notice his divine sense at all. Wang Lin's expression remained normal as he followed Yun Fei toward Qilin City, until they were right next to the Qilin beast. Up close, this Qilin beast felt even more magnificent. Like a large mountain in front of people, it couldn't help but make people feel small. On the side, Yun Fei said, "This is Qilin City, one of the 10 main cities in the Sea of Devils. Seeing the Qilin beast up close for first the time is always shocking. The rumor is that before the water in the Sea of Devil evaporated, there indeed existed such Qilin beasts. I really can't imagine that these type of divine beasts existed." However, Wang Lin wasn't shocked much by this. Compared to the land of the ancient gods, this city really wasn't much. Also, with the memories of the ancient god, Wang Lin didn't feel much from seeing the Qilin beast. Not even including the ancient god's memories, just within the land of the ancient gods, that 100,000-foot dragon was much more amazing than this Qilin beast. After taking a look, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and said, "Take me to your house." Yun Fei nodded. She stepped on her flying sword and quickly flew to one of the scales. Even though it was just a scale, it was more than 100 feet wide. Standing on the scale, Yun Fei took out the jade and sent some spirit power into it. Suddenly, a green light shined from the jade and the scales start to ripple like water, then turn transparent. Yun Fei turned around and looked at Wang Lin as her body sank into the scale. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He touched the surface and felt a cool sensation. After pondering for a while, he moved to where Yun Fei was standing and also sank into the scale. The cave wasn't large. There were 3 rooms in total. After Wang Lin entered, Yun Fei quickly handed the jade to Wang Lin, and then uneasily waited for Wang Lin to speak. Wang Lin scanned the jade and found that there was a formation within the jade. This formation was clearly used to control the cave. After looking at it a little, he raised his head and blandly said to Yun Fei, "You can freely come and go, but if you reveal that I came out from the chaotic broken stars, don't blame me for not showing mercy. But you can rest assured that I won't stay long in the Sea of Devils. When I leave, I'll remove the restriction I put on you." After he finished speaking, he created another restriction that landed on Yun Fei's forehead. After laying down the restriction, Wang Lin stopped watching Yun Fei. With a wave of his hand, he divided the cave in half, separating their living spaces. He also placed a restriction in between. Sitting cross-legged in the cave, Wang Lin pointed his finger between his brows. Suddenly, a ghost appeared. The ghost was a blur and was only 8 palm sizes large, but it was in the shape of a beast. This ghost was the second devil used by Wang Lin in the land of the ancient god. After the second devil appeared, it floated in midair, motionless, waiting for Wang Lin's command. Since Wang Lin formed his soul core, the last bit of rebellious feelings that the second devil had involuntarily disappeared. Wang Lin pointed his finger at it. The second devil's ghost form quickly faded until it disappeared. But if Wang Lin used his power as a soul devourer, he could clearly feel where the second devil was. He sent out a message to the second devil with this divine sense, and the second devil quietly moved toward Yun Fei and landed on the restriction that Wang Lin had just placed on her. Yun Fei didn't notice this process at all. After doing all this, Wang Lin no longer paid any more attention to her. He sat there and organized his thoughts on what had happened in the land of the ancient god in the past 200 years. During this time he encountered many things and almost died on several occasions, but now he felt like he had seen a dream. He couldn't really tell which parts were real and which parts weren't. After a long time, Wang Lin let out a sigh. Although he received the inheritance of knowledge, it was only part of the true inheritance. The other part was the inheritance of power. The master of the Blood Sea wouldn't just give it up. Once he finds a way to leave the land of the ancient god, the first thing he will do is find Wang Lin. who took the inheritance of knowledge and steal it. Once Wang Lin loses the inheritance of knowledge, he won't have any way to protect himself. This matter felt like a giant mountain weighing down his heart. But under Wang Lin's analysis, if the red-haired man really wanted to leave the land of the ancient god, it wouldn't be a simple matter, so Wang Lin wouldn't have to worry about him for now. However, some preparation was still needed. Wang Lin had decided that once he had settled down in Qilin City, he would get Yun Fei to help him search for the ancient transfer arrays in the mainland of the Sea of Devils. He had more than 20 top-quality spirit stones, enough for him to open up a transfer array to anywhere he wanted. But prior to this, he had to carefully study the ancient transfer array. If he didn't understand them, even if he were to find the method of using them, he wouldn't dare do so. This was one of the reasons why he came to Qilin City. In addition, he had reached the peak of late-stage core formation and was only one step away from the nascent soul stage, but that one step was like a giant gap, which he hadn't been able to cross. Wang Lin didn't know if forming the nascent soul was as difficult for others as it was for him, but for him it was much more difficult than he imagined. He had used the dragon's spinal fluid and other pills that should help with the process, but even then he still couldn't form his nascent soul. Not even a trace of his nascent soul forming had appeared yet. Wang Lin had tried to analyze this before, to see if it had anything to do with his G realm, but based on the little amount of understanding he got when the G realm entered his soul, this strange state would make reaching the nascent soul stage and going past its 3 stages much more difficult. However, after one gets past the nascent soul late stage and into the soul formation stage, if compared to any cultivator of the same level, then the G realm owner would hold an absolute advantage. In fact, he never had much understanding of the G realm. Another reason why he came to Qilin City was to see if he could find any text about the G realm. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering for a while, he took out several bags of holding. All of these were things he had acquired while he was at the land of the ancient god. First was Ancient Emperor's bag of holding. When he tried to enter it with his divine sense, he felt a gentle energy pushing his divine sense out. Wang Lin's gaze focused on the bag of holding. He pondered a little. It seemed Ancient Emperor wasn't dead yet. He sneered. He put that bag to the side and moved on to the other bags. The bag that made him the most excited was the one holding Duomu's group's 10 instruments. With a wave of his hand, the 10 instruments fell out of the bag. The 10 instruments floated before him. Besides the half-moon blade, which still had a faint glow, the other 9 instruments were no longer glowing. Wang Lin's divine soul quickly moved toward those 9 instruments. However, the moment his divine sense touched them, his expression darkened. Although the owner of the 9 instruments was dead, there was another divine sense on them that prevented Wang Lin from using them. His eyes lit up. He pondered for a while and suddenly remembered that before the instruments were handed to him, the old man had made a print on each one. Wang Lin frowned. He once again surrounded the instruments with his divine sense. This time he carefully studied each instrument. He spent a lot of time looking for the fluctuations of divine sense on the instruments. After a long time, Wang Lin's gaze fell on a small mirror and his eyes lit up. From his observation of these 9 instruments besides this mirror, the divine sense on the other 8 wasn't something he could break at the core formation stage. The destruction of its master's divine sense somehow messed up the divine sense that was placed on the mirror. As a result, it was not impossible to destroy the divine sense placed in this mirror. Wang Lin pondered for a while and suddenly put away the other instruments and began to take the mirror over by force. Time flew by. After 1.5 months had passed, Wang Lin walked out of the cave with his expression as calm as always. He had successfully destroyed the divine sense on the mirror and made it his 30 days ago. Then it took him 7 days to gain some basic understanding of the it. Then he refined it with his own fire, and after 49 days, the mirror was completely his. He felt the effect of the mirror during this period of time. The effect of this ancient mirror was really mysterious. It was similar to the ring of the chaotic broken stars. It was related to avatars. Wang Lin believed that this must have been a famous treasure a long time ago, or it wouldn't be the life-saving treasure of an ancient cultivator. But with only Wang Lin's knowledge, he didn't know the name of this mirror. Even with the memories of the ancient god, he didn't possess much knowledge on magical treasures. After all, the ancient god's body was the best weapon. The ancient gods didn't often refine treasures, and when they did, those treasures would have unimaginable power. Even now, Wang Lin would still think about the square pyramid that Tu Si had thrown away. After inheriting the memories, Wang Lin held the memories to create many magical treasures. However, the amount of resources required was simply too much. Even if he were to use all of the resources in the Suzaka star system, he wouldn't even be able to refine one of them. Now, he knew the name of that square pyramid. It was called the Mysterious Star Pyramid. The function of the pyramid was to seal. If it was used properly, it would seal anything, including entire planets. This pyramid required the least amount materials out of all the treasures, but that was only relative to the other treasures. In the past month and a half, besides studying the mirror, Wang Lin had also started making the restriction flags with the ink stones. However, Wang Lin was still missing some materials for the restriction flag. The reason he left the cave was to check out the town square and try to find these materials. During this time when he was refining the mirror, the restriction on Yunfei activated many times, and every time Wang Lin remotely stopped it through the second devil. After such a long time, Yunfei had already given in to her fate and was even numb to it. In fact, Yunfei had left the house many times to find experts, to see if anyone could remove these restrictions, and every time, she came back disappointed. All of the cultivators Yunfei found couldn't break the restriction. Everyone that saw the restriction frowned. In their view, this wasn't like any restriction used in the current cultivation world, but more like ancient restrictions. There were also some people that asked questions about the restriction, but restrictions was already an odd subject in the world of cultivation, so not many people were willing to spend the time studying it. Even though the restriction on Yunfei was really unique, no one really tried to learn more about it. Yunfei was very careful when she found people to try to break the restriction. She was afraid that she would accidentally leak information about Wang Lin and get killed by him before she managed to break the restriction. Yunfei didn't know that everything she was doing was being observed by Wang Lin through the second devil. He saw all of the things she had done and coldly laughed in his heart, thinking that she was just looking for death. Wang Lin walked out of the stone room and was about to head out of the cave to the city when the cave suddenly opened up and Yunfei walked in with a frown on her face. Wang Lin stopped, made a seal with his hand, and suddenly disappeared. After the woman entered the cave, she looked toward Wang Lin's room. There was bitterness in her eyes. Wang Lin looked at the woman. The things this woman had done already made him want to kill her. After she walked into her room, Wang Lin left the cave and went into the heart of Qilin City. The inside the Qilin City was very large. It contained many shops that sold all kinds of things. Walking in the city, Wang Lin met many cultivators with varying cultivation levels. The strong ones were in the late stage of core formation and the weak ones were at the first or second layer of qi condensing. Wang Lin casually walked around, eyeing the shops for things he needed. Meanwhile, his divine sense was constantly connected to the second devil, as he watched what Yunfei was doing. She went to the corner of her room, opened a stone slab, and took out a pill furnace, and then she put it back. She stayed in her room, not knowing what she should do. Seeing this, Wang Lin sneered in his heart. Her life was already in his hands, so he wasn't in any rush to kill her. He intended to see if there was anyone in Qilin City that could break the restriction, and in a way test how strong his restrictions had become. With this plan in mind, he kept watching her through his divine sense and also started to look for the materials he needed. While walking, Wang Lin's gaze suddenly focused onto a shop. This shop was 5 stories tall, decorated with a carving of a dragon and phoenix that released spirit powers. There was also a giant piece of white jade with 3 words carved on it: Treasure Refining Pavilion. Looking at the pavilion, Wang Lin revealed a strange smile. He remembered back to when he was in Nando City and went to a treasure refining pavilion to exchange dragon skin for a pill furnace, which made many people chase after him and ended up causing a bloodbath. He ended up giving the pill furnace that caused all of this to Li Muwen. Thinking about this, an image of a gentle, weak, and fragile woman appeared in his mind. He sighed. He knew that Li Muwen liked him, but he had a blood feud that he just couldn't forget. In the cruel world of cultivation, he really couldn't have any ties because if he caused a catastrophe again, she would be harmed because of it. After going through such an experience, Wang Lin's heart became cold. He decided to not let himself have any ties before he was strong enough to protect them. In the blink of an eye, 200 years had passed. Li Muwen might not even be alive anymore. He forcibly removed Li Muwen's figure from his mind. His heart became cold again as he walked into this treasure refining pavilion. The inside of this treasure refining pavilion wasn't all that different from the one in Nando City, besides having one extra floor. After Wang Lin entered, he casually looked around and went up the stairs. The moment he walked into the second floor, he stopped and his gaze fell onto the left wall. On the wall hung the skin of a giant dragon. This skin was complete, so it felt like there was a living dragon in the room. On the second floor of the treasure refining pavilion sat a girl wearing a blue silk dress. She was eating sunflower seeds when she saw Wang Lin staring at the dragon skin. She used a special technique of the pavilion to look at Wang Lin and found him to be at the late stage of core formation. She said with a clear and beautiful voice, "This is the most complete dragon skin our pavilion has. It is not for sale unless you have something of equal value to exchange for it." This dragon skin felt very familiar to Wang Lin, especially the way the skin was joined together. It was very similar to the one Wang Lin exchanged for the pill furnace. Wang Lin pondered for a while and asked, "I'd like to ask, where did this come from?" If Wang Lin asked when he was at the early stage of core formation, he wouldn't have gotten an answer, but now that he was at the late stage of core formation and close to the nascent soul stage, his cultivation was high enough for the girl to answer. She chuckled and said, "Senior isn't the first person to ask where it came from. After all, getting a complete dragon skin is simply too difficult. And this dragon skin was carved off the dragon the moment it died." Wang Lin nodded. His gaze moved away from the dragon's skin and onto the girl. The girl put down the sunflower seeds in her hand and sweetly smiled. To be honest, Junior doesn't know who obtained this dragon skin. This was traded in at a branch store in Nando City outside the Sea of Devils for a pill furnace. The rumor is that the cultivator that exchanged the dragon skin died outside the Sea of Devils. From the moment that cultivator left Nando City, he was chased by many core formation experts, including a mid-stage core formation expert, and that cultivator was only at the late stage of foundation building at the time. Originally, there wasn't anything abnormal about it as this cultivator was bound to die, but the cultivator broke through to the core formation stage during the pursuit and turned around and killed all the cultivators chasing him. He even forced the mid-stage core formation expert to use the 10,000 Devil 100 Days Heavenly Kill Order. Wang Lin's face calmly listened to all of this without any change in his expression. After the girl finished talking, he nodded and didn't ask any more about this. After walking through the pavilion, he spent 30 mid-quality spirit stones and brought the materials he needed. He then spent more spirit stones on a piece of jade that held the location of ancient transfer arrays. Then he left without looking back once. That dragon skin was still calmly displayed on the wall on the second floor of the pavilion. Wang Lin was very satisfied with the materials. He had all the materials he needed for the restriction flags. Truth to be told, besides the ink stone, all the other materials weren't that rare, so they were very easy to purchase. Putting the materials aside, Wang Lin wasn't very satisfied with the jade. Even in the pavilion, there wasn't much information on ancient transfer arrays. Even this piece of jade only contained some scattered records of them. As for information on the G realm, Wang Lin didn't ask directly. He questioned about it indirectly, but found nothing. After returning to the cave, Yun Fei was still in her stone room. After checking up on her, Wang Lin returned to his stone room and started the production of the restriction flags. His cultivation was a lot higher than Yun Fei's, so when he entered, Yun Fei didn't notice at all. He took out the jade that he had obtained from the second realm in the land of the ancient god, which contained the information regarding the production of the restriction flags. He looked through the jade again before crushing it in his hand. After he took out the ink stone and sent his spirit power into it, he took out the other materials and fused them together according to the instructions. Then, following the instructions of the jade, he let out an essence of blood spirit power and began the refining process. This process was called raising the device in the jade. It could be said that the process for refining the restriction flags was different from the method of refining treasures that he had learned from the War Shrine. The two methods weren't just two different systems, but two completely separate domains. The time of raising the device could be long or short, depending on the needs of the restriction flag. If one could place 999,999 restriction on the restriction flag, then it would be optimal, but in reality restriction flags have 4 levels. These 4 levels were divided by the amount of restrictions on the flag. They were 999, 9,999, 99,999, and the final one was 999,999 restrictions. Wang Lin's first goal was 999 restrictions. Later that day, Wang Lin sat in his room, constantly moving his hand. Before him was a small white flag with 81 black dots. Wang Lin became more focused. His hand changed between many seals and suddenly pointed at the flag. The afterimage left by his hand formed an illusionary circle and landed on the white flag. The moment the restriction landed, it broke apart and reformed as a black dot on the flag. At this moment there were 12 dots on the flag. Once there were 999 black spots on it, the creation of the lowest level of restriction flag would be complete. Wang Lin was very careful during this process. Although he had created dozens of restrictions tonight, not all of them could be successfully placed on the flag. After several attempts, Wang Lin found that the flag could only hold 9 of the same restriction at once. Once the 10th copy of a restriction was placed, the 9 before it would disappear. After resting a while, when Wang Lin was about to place the 13th restriction on the flag, he raised his head and stared at Yun Fei's room. His eyes became cold. Through the second devil, Wang Lin could see that Yun Fei took out the pill furnace again. This pill furnace was very old, and on it was a strip of yellow paper that let off a faint glow. She hesitated for a while, then she clenched her teeth. Instead of putting the furnace into her bag of holding, she held it in her hand and quietly walked out of her room. Outside her room, she looked at Wang Lin's room with strong hatred in her eyes, but quickly covered it up. The woman stood outside Wang Lin's room and asked, "Senior, are you there?" After she asked, she didn't move at all and waited. After about 1 hour, the woman respectfully said again, "Senior, Junior needs to go on a trip and would like to ask Senior for permission." After she finished speaking, she slowly backed up. Even when she was at the entrance of the cave, Wang Lin still didn't do anything. The woman's eyes lit up. She gently touched the door to the cave and left. During the month Wang Lin had been locked in his room. Whenever the woman was going to leave, she would do this. Wang Lin sneered in the room. After she left, he stood up and followed her. This time, the woman took the pill furnace with her. There must be something important going on, and Wang Lin was also kind of curious about the pill furnace. It had to be said that when he first entered the cave, he scanned it with this divine sense and didn't find anything abnormal. Obviously, the furnace was guarded by some spell that prevented it from being detected by divine sense. Also, Wang Lin had some speculation on why she didn't put it in her bag of holding. In the Sea of Devils, one couldn't see the moon. Only specks of moonlight that shone through the thick fog could be seen. But for cultivators, these small specks of moonlight was enough to guide them. After Yun Fei left cave, she quickly headed straight toward a gate in the mountain that surrounded the city. As she was passing through the gate, she stopped and saw someone walk out. This person wore black clothes and a golden cape. The person's entire body seemed to be wrapped in cloth. This black-clothed person looked at Yun Fei and without word, turned around and walked out of the city. Yun Fei hesitated, but she clenched her teeth and quickly followed. The two successfully walked through the gate. None of the Qilin city guards stopped them. Wang Lin saw all of this from a distance using the second devil. He sneered again and his body turned into a ghost-like form. He quietly followed behind them. Wang Lin was able to see through the second devil that the person in black was only at the mid-stage of core formation. If Wang Lin wanted to kill that person, he only had to send out his divine sense and destroy their soul. It was just that Yun Fei's actions were very mysterious tonight. So Wang Lin wanted to see who she found to break the restriction he had set on her. After the person in black and Yun Fei left the city, they headed straight east and stopped at a mountain covered in black mist. They were 3,000 miles from Qilin City at this point. Ancestor, disciple has brought the person. The black-clothed person knelt on the ground with one leg. He placed his hand on his chest, forming the shape of a lotus, and revealed a very respectful expression. A thunderous voice boomed out from the mountain. "You can go back." The black mist on the mountain ripped and revealed a small pavilion at the top. The black-clothed person stood up and left without even looking back. Wang Lin was currently standing on a cliff 1,000 miles away. After seeing the black-clothed man leave, He pointed his finger at his brow and the devil Su Ligua appeared. After Su Ligua appeared, he received Wang Lin's order. He chuckled and headed toward the black-clothed person. Yunfei stood outside the black mist. She became nervous again and began to hesitate. Everything that had happened tonight wasn't something she had sought out herself. In the days that Wang Lin had been locked in his room, Yunfei found many cultivators to help her remove the restriction, but they all failed. Originally, she had already given up, but unexpectedly, one of the middle city guards found her and said that there was someone who could remove the restriction on her, but she had to pay a price. As a result, Yunfei nervously considered it. If the person had a mid-stage core formation cultivator working under him, then this mysterious person couldn't be weak. However, that didn't mean that this person had the ability to remove the restriction, because in her mind, Wang Lin's cultivation had already reached an unimaginable level. Just when she was contemplating, which was this morning, the mid-stage core formation cultivator handed her a piece of jade which contained a detailed recording of all the effects of this restriction. She was stunned. It had to be said that even though she looked for many cultivators to help her break the restriction, she never talked about the effects in detail. The only people that could know these details were the person who set the restriction and someone who could break it. After seeing that jade, Yunfei's hesitating heart became determined, and she decided to risk it. And that's how they reached this point. At this moment, Yunfei raised her head and looked at the pavilion at the top of the mountain. However, because of the mist surrounding the mountain, she couldn't clearly see what the person looked like. Yunfei bit her lower lip and whispered, "Can Senior really break the restriction on Junior? Come up and speak." The voice contained overwhelming power. The moment he spoke, the black mist suddenly moved and formed a dragon-shaped path with the head at the top of the mountain and the tail before Yunfei. Yunfei suppressed the fear in her heart and walked up the stairs. Soon she reached the pavilion at the top of the mountain. The person inside was a middle-aged man who was wearing a robe. He was very good-looking and exuded an aura that made others feel like he was from powerful family. The moment he saw Yunfei, his eyes lit up. The person thought, "It really is an ancient restriction." But his expression remained normal and he blandly said, "I can remove the restriction on you, but you have to tell me who placed it on you." Yunfei hesitated a little and whispered, "Senior Junior can't tell you that. How about I exchange a batch of pills instead?" The middle-aged man pondered a little and shook his head. He said, "If you don't tell me, I won't remove the restriction on you. I can tell you that within the Sea of Devils, not many can remove this restriction. You can think about it first." Yunfei's expression became unsettled. After pondering for a while, she said, "Okay, I would like to ask Senior to break the restriction first. If you succeed, then Junior will tell you." The middle-aged man let out a laugh. He waved his hand and a purple rock appeared in his hand. The rock was a very round and smooth sphere. After he took out the rock, he quickly used a spirit technique on it. The rock started to glow a rainbow color. Shortly after, a red light appeared and landed on Yunfei's forehead. Yunfei shivered. She could feel that the moment the red light entered her body, it broke into many red threads and traveled through her body. At this point, the middle-aged man's expression became very serious. He carefully examined Yunfei. Not long after, a faint symbol appeared between Yunfei's eyebrows. The symbol released a very ancient feel. The moment the middle-aged man saw the symbol, he revealed a joyous expression and muttered, "This really is an ancient restriction. I really didn't expect anyone to be able to use this type of restriction." His eyes lit up. He bit finger and dripped a drop of blood on the rock. The rock started to flash intensely and a black and white light came out from the rock. The light went toward the symbol between Yunfei's brow. But at the same time a change suddenly occurred. A shadow appeared from Yunfei's hair. The shadow revealed a beast's head. It went in front of Yunfei's brow and swallowed the white and black light. Then the shadow turned to face Yunfei and sucked in a breath. Yunfei's eyes expanded with blood and her soul was sucked into the beast's mouth. All of this happened too fast, almost in the blink of an eye. Yunfei's soul was taken. In truth, the moment she walked onto the dragon-shaped road, her fate was sealed. There was only death left for her. If she had listened to Wang Lin and quietly waited for Wang Lin to leave the Sea of Devils, then she would have had a chance to live. At the same time, the beast's body expanded and wrapped up Yunfei's body. A storage bag, a pill furnace, and a golden core were taken by the beast as it was about to leave. When the middle-aged man saw the beast, his expression changed. He really didn't know what this beast was, to have such a strange ability to suck away someone's soul. He had a speculation that this beast had always been there, and that it had a master. This made the middle-aged man very nervous. But soon he returned to normal. Seeing that the beast was going to leave, his eyes became cold. He waved his hand and the fog that formed the dragon-shaped road surrounded the beast. Shortly after, he slammed his bag of holding and took out a small drum made from the skin of some unknown animal. He looked at the beast and lightly hit the drum with his finger. With a boom, the black mist started to tremble and turned into black armored soldiers, holding different magical treasures. They charged toward the beast. The second devil was blocked by the black fog in front, and the black armored soldiers behind him were approaching. Many colored lights emitted from the soldiers' weapons and rained down on the second devil. But this beast was Wang Lin's second devil. Although it was not very powerful, it had amazing escape capabilities. Even back when Wang Lin first captured it, it was almost able to escape. The second devil didn't hesitate and swallowed Yun Fei's core. It suddenly grew twice in size and then split from 1 to 10, then from 10 to 100. Suddenly, there were 100 beasts trapped in the pavilion. All 100 beasts let out sharp screeches. The sound waves rippled through the surroundings. Then the 100 beasts all beat their wings in unison to create a strong tornado and used it to charge out. With the sound wave opening the path and the tornado following behind, the fog blocking the path became unable to hold its physical form and collapsed. Even some of the soldiers that were chasing from behind were destroyed. Then the tornado came and blew away the collapsed fog completely. The middle-aged man stared at the tornado created by the beast with great interest in his eyes. He moved his right hand and hit the drum a few more times. Boom, 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 boom. 4 booms echoed in a row and the fog raged even harder and formed all sorts of strange beasts at the edge of the mountain. All of those beasts were very large and were filled with killing intent as they stared at the tornado. I don't care who your master is. No spirit beast that catches my eye has ever escaped. I know you can understand me, so listen well. Before, I only tried to block you, not attack, but in 3 breaths if you don't obey me, I'll start attacking. The second devil let out a laugh. The bodies he created fused back together inside the tornado, and he suddenly attacked the middle-aged man with a soul attack. The lightning-shaped soul attack broke through all that blocked its way. Even the black fog instantly dispersed when the lightning touched it. In the blink of an eye, it was already before the mid-aged man. The middle-aged man's face suddenly changed. He backed up, bit his lips and spat out some fresh blood. When the soul attack landed on the blood, a sizzling sound could be heard and the attack paused slightly. At the same time, the middle-aged man took out a piece of black-colored wood from his bag of holding. With a look of fear on his face, he roared, "Absorb!" At that moment, the soul attack involuntarily charged toward the black-colored wood. But the moment the attack was about to land, the second devil let out a roar and the soul attack broke into 100 strands and quickly withdrew. The middle-aged man's forehead was covered in sweat. If he was a bit slower earlier, then he would have been in danger, but his current expression showed a very strong sense of enthusiasm. He licked his lips and said with a husky voice, "It can even use soul attacks. Even if this spirit beast has a master, I will steal it no matter what." The moment he said those words, he heard a very cold voice float in from the distance. "Is that so?" The moment the voice appeared, a buzzing sound appeared as well. The middle-aged man quickly raised his head and saw that a giant tornado appeared on the horizon and quickly charged toward the fog. The beast formed by the black fog was about to attack the tornado when a screech could be heard from within the tornado and a blast of wind came out. It destroyed all of the beasts formed by the fog. Meanwhile, the second devil let out a laugh and charged out. It fused together with the tornado. The second devil was very angry. After gaining control of the tornado, it went on a rampage and started to destroy the surrounding fog. The middle-aged man didn't even look at the tornado, but stared at the horizon with a cautious look in his eyes. He saw a white-haired man wearing black clothes, slowly walking towards him. Although the white-haired man looked like he was moving slowly, he was actually moving very fast. In a few blinks of the eye, the white-haired man appeared on the mountaintop. The middle-aged man's pupils contracted. He hit the drum again and all of the surrounding fog quickly condensed into 8 balls of black fog. The balls floated around him. Chiu Saiping's eyes lit up. He calmly said, "You must be the one who knows how to use ancient restrictions." The white-haired man was Wang Lin. He waved his hand and 2 items flew out from the giant tornado. It was the bag of holding and the pill furnace. He didn't look at them but held them in his hand. Only after he had secured the 2 items did he look at the middle-aged man. Wang Lin saw that this middle-aged man had already reached the peak of the late stage of core formation, and was only 1 step away from the nascent soul stage. But as long as the person was not a nascent soul cultivator, Wang Lin wouldn't have any trouble killing them. His eyes became cold and he coldly said, "I'm this beast's master. You said you wanted to steal it before, correct? Well, come and try to steal it. I'll give you a chance." Wang Lin waved his right hand. The second devil came out from the tornado and floated before the middle-aged man, motionless. Chiu Saiping frowned. He could see that Wang Lin was also at the late stage of core formation, but since he could be so arrogant, there must be something else. Chiu Saiping became very cautious. His eyes waved a bit and stared at the beast before him. He shook his head and said, "Sorry to have let fellow cultivator see such a joke. Before I was only kidding. Since this beast belongs to fellow cultivator, how could I steal it? It was all a misunderstanding. I hope fellow cultivator doesn't mind the small things that have happened." Wang Lin calmly waved his hand and the second devil returned to him. Suddenly, red lightning appeared in his eyes as his G-realm soul appeared. Suddenly, a strong suppressive force appeared. Chiu Saiping was about to speak when he suddenly saw the red glow from Wang Lin's eyes. His heart sank. He never thought that Wang Lin wouldn't even wait for him to finish speaking before killing him. He became angry in his heart. Wang Lin was at the same cultivation as him. Even if Wang Lin had a magic treasure, it wasn't like he didn't have magic treasures of his own. He snorted. He quickly moved backward and waved his hand. The 8 balls of fog quickly spread out into a thick layer of fog. Chiu Saiping's eyes became cold. Since Wang Lin wouldn't even listen to him, he decided to just fight first and talk later. But just as this idea formed in his head, he heard from Wang Lin a sound as cold as the icy winds of hell. "Destroy!" Wang Lin's G-realm charged into the fog like lightning. The fog couldn't compare to his G-realm at all, and collapsed the moment they collided. Only a series of explosions could be heard as the 8 balls of fog all collapsed. Chiu Saiping's expression suddenly changed. While he was backing up without hesitation, he formed a seal with his hand and spit out several mouthfuls of fresh blood to block the red lightning. But the moment the blood appeared, it was turned into mist and was pushed aside. It didn't even stop the lightning for 1 second. A shadow of death that hadn't appeared in a long time loomed over Chiu Saiping's heart. Without a word, he took out the black piece of wood from earlier. The moment he took it out, Wang Lin's G-realm landed on it. Sounds of cracking could be heard from the black piece of wood and then, with a bang, it exploded. The red lightning left the piece of wood and entered Chiu Saiping's body. Chiu Saiping's body trembled and his eyes became foggy, but after spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, his eyes became clear again. However, this time his eyes were filled with fear. Without a word, he quickly turned around to escape. Wang Lin let out a sound of surprise. This person didn't die under the attack of his G-realm. This really surprised him because the only other time this had happened was outside the Sea of Devils with a guy named Shangguan Mo, who used a mysterious piece of jade to escape. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He chased after Chiu Saiping like lightning and appeared before him. Chiu Saiping was terrified. He wryly smiled. "Fellow cultivator, you and I don't have any grudges. Why must you kill me?" He felt a lot of regret in his heart. When he thought about it, if this person could use ancient restrictions, how could he be weak? Even if the person was only at the late stage of core formation, he had a soul attack that he couldn't even defend against. If he didn't have an odd treasure to protect himself, he would have already died. In his eyes, even though the person wasn't at the nascent soul stage, he had the attack power of a nascent soul cultivator. How could he not run at this point? But as he thought about it, Wang Lin must possess a very powerful treasure to use such a powerful attack. Wang Lin's expression remained cold. His eyes showed a hint of mockery. He blandly said, You sent people multiple times to lure that woman out in order to find the person who set the ancient restriction. Now that you found him, why are you running? Qiu Siping let out a bitter smile and said, Fellow cultivator, I don't have any malicious intent, only... He hesitated for a while and quickly continued. Only, there is something of great benefit that I need someone who knows ancient restrictions to help me with. Qiu Siping was a clever man. After hearing Wang Lin's words, he had realized that his black-clothed subordinate was in danger, but he pretended like he didn't know anything. Wang Lin remained calm. His eyes glowed red again. Qiu Siping secretly clenched his teeth and urgently said, Fellow cultivator, both you and I are at the late stage of core formation. If you just listen to me, then forming our nascent souls will be just around the corner. The red glow in Wang Lin's eye faded. He stared at Qiu Siping and darkly said, My patience has a limit. I'll give you 3 sentences to explain it to me. If it doesn't impress me after that, then don't blame me for being merciless. Qiu Siping cursed in his heart, but his expression remained normal. He took a deep breath and said, I believe fellow cultivator knows that the difference between core formation and nascent soul is very large. Even if one finds a place with very thick spirit power, the failure rate of breaking into the nascent soul stage is still very high. Wang Lin's expression remained dull and said, The first sentence. Qiu Siping paused for a while and quickly continued, Unless there are some pills to help form our nascent souls, then the amount of power our core produces isn't enough at all. Wang Lin glanced at Qiu Siping and said, The second sentence. I don't have any pills to help with the process, but I do know of something else that is way better than those pills. If one were to swallow this, then reaching the nascent soul stage would be easy. The thing I'm talking about is a nascent soul cultivator's nascent soul. I know of a place that has at least 2 nascent soul cultivators in Guishi. Qiu Siping finished this last sentence in one breath. This cloud boat was about 10 feet long and was filled with patterns of spirit beasts. The head of the boat had a carving of a bird that looked alive. Qiu Siping's body moved and slowly landed inside the body. He turned to look at Wang Lin. Wang Lin scanned the cloud with his divine sense. After finding nothing abnormal about the boat, he took a step and landed on the boat. Qiu Siping formed a seal with his 2 hands and sent a technique into the bird carving, which made the boat start moving. Riding the cloud boat was a bit slower than flying, but because it didn't require any spiritual energy, it was a lot less taxing. Wang Lin stood in the boat, looking at the light barrier that surrounded it. The barrier blocked out all the black rain that had been pouring down for more than half a month. Countless roars of thunder could be heard in the rain, creating a thunder falling in the night feel. Qiu Siping stood on his seat and asked, Brother Wang, how do you like the boat? Wang Lin nodded his head and praised, It's very good. Qiu Siping let out a laugh and said, This was made by me. Brother Wang, besides studying restrictions, I also like making these things. It took me years of hard work to get the materials to make it. At the same time, a bolt of lightning suddenly split the sky. Although the thunder was far away from the Sea of Devils, one could still feel its power. This lightning was many times stronger than lightning created from a technique. It was on a completely different level. Qiu Siping looked up into the sky and muttered, I was born in the Sea of Devils and have lived here for more than 200 years. In this past half a month, it was the first time I saw the sky. Wang Lin was about to speak when his eyes suddenly locked onto something in the distance. Following some thunderous roars, a giant turtle appeared in the horizon. On top of the turtle stood an old man. He was pointing at the sky and cursing non-stop. Although he was far away, his voice still traveled to them. This old man is not done with you, divine retribution thief. Let's continue with your 3783 crime. Wang Lin frowned. His gaze fell on the giant turtle under the old man for a bit. The aura this giant turtle gave off was very similar to the giant dragon in the land of the ancient god. Most importantly, this giant turtle looked exactly the same as a giant turtle in the ancient god's memory. Xuanwu. Qiu Siping's eyes suddenly opened wide as his pupils shrunk and his face suddenly changed color. He formed many different seals with his hand and sent them into the statue at the front. Suddenly, the entire boat started to turn so it could go around the old man. Xuanwu. Wang Lin stared at the turtle for a while and pondered. In the memories there was no Xuanwu, but a creature called Tisho. This beast mainly ate spiritual energy. Its attack was a roar that, when heard by a normal cultivator, their spiritual energy will go out of control, causing their body to collapse and become the beast's food. The old man that had been cursing took out a big dirty gourd. After drinking a big gulp, he started to curse again. He didn't even look at the boat Wang Lin and Qiu Siping were on. Sweat appeared on Qiu Siping's forehead. He carefully controlled the boat to slowly go around the old man. Only after flying far away from the old man did he finally let out a breath and turn to Wang Lin. He said, "Since that person can use a Xuanwu as a mount, his cultivation must be at an unimaginable level. It seems this change to the Sea of Devils has caused a lot of powerful old-timers to come out. Fortunately, he didn't bother with us, or we would be out of luck." Wang Lin looked at Qiu Siping and said with a dark expression, "That might not be so." Qiu Siping was stunned. Wang Lin pointed with his right hand. Qiu Siping turned to that direction and saw the scene from before. The old man was standing on top of the giant turtle, cursing loudly. Qiu Siping pondered a while and said one word, "Formation." Wang Lin didn't bother with Qiu Siping. He walked up to the head of the boat and looked around. When the boat turned earlier, he felt there was something strange, like a fluctuation of power coming from the legs of the turtle. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin said, "This is not a formation but some kind of restriction." Qiu Siping slightly frowned. He looked around and bitterly said, "With just our cultivation, it can't incentivize this senior to place this restriction just for us, right?" Wang Lin didn't speak, but kept his divine sense scanning the area. This old man wouldn't just stop them for no reason. It seemed there might be some trouble ahead. The old man seemed to be tired of cursing. He took another big gulp from the gourd and sat down. His gaze fell on the boat Qiu Siping and Wang Lin were on. This old man grabbed with his right hand and the boat suddenly flew toward him. Soon, the boat was only 10 feet away from him. Qiu Siping quickly put on a respectful face and said, "Junior Qiu Siping greets senior." The old man blinked and said, "You know me." Qiu Siping was stunned and quickly said, "Senior, I don't know you, so how would you know me? If you don't know me, then why do you call me senior? Am I that old? Fine. Let me tell you about the things that happened when I was 3. After I have finished telling you about all the things that happened in these past few thousand years, then you can say you know me. When I was 3. The moment the old man started talking, he went on endlessly, causing Qiu Siping to be completely stunned and unable to say a word. After a long time, the old man finally stopped talking and drank another gulp of wine from the gourd. The gourd was now empty and the old man's mouth twitched and muttered, "If I knew I was going to talk so much today, I would have brought more wine with me. Now that there is no more left, the two of you come with me to get more wine, and I'll tell you about my experiences of when I was 75 on the way." Qiu Siping's face twitched. He quickly took out wine from his bag of holding and said, "So Junior has wine, so there is no need to go buy more." The old man's face lit up and he moved his hand. The wine in Qiu Siping's hand immediately disappeared. Wang Lin was silent the whole time. He couldn't see through the old man's cultivation at all, and since he was not good with conversations, it was perfect to leave it all to Qiu Siping. Also, Wang Lin had been thinking about why this person had stopped them. He felt that the reason was either the divine retribution or the killing spree he went on. Of course, there was also a chance that the person this old man was here for was Qiu Siping, but as the old man talked, Wang Lin had a feeling that the person this old man was here for was not Qiu Siping but Wang Lin himself. The old man opened the bottle. He sniffed the wine then said, "Fine wine made from Qian fruit. Not bad. Little guy, you suit this old man. How about it, want to be my disciple?" Wang Lin's mind began to race. This old man wouldn't say this for no reason. There must be some hidden meaning behind it. Qiu Siping was completely stunned this time. If this person was long-winded before, he seemed completely insane now. Who accepts disciples like this? Qiu Siping suddenly felt like someone had a hold on his throat and couldn't say a word. After a while, he bitterly smiled and said, "Senior, I..." The old man's eyes turned and said, "What? Not happy? Then do you, yes, you want to be my disciple?" The old man turned to Wang Lin and faintly smiled. Wang Lin's expression was calm. He already knew that the old man would bring the subject to him and respectfully said, "Junior already has a sect." "What sect?" The old man's face was still full of smiles, but from Wang Lin's view, he could already see a hint of coldness in the old man's eyes. He immediately confirmed his guess that the target of this old man was himself. Wang Lin's expression remained the same and he respectfully answered, "Country of Zhao Hung Yu sect." The old man thoughtfully looked at Wang Lin and his smile became even colder. He said, "In 3 days you killed thousands of core formation cultivators. You are very daring." The moment those words came out, Qiu Siping's face suddenly paled. He took a few steps back and looked at Wang Lin with a look of disbelief. Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but his heart skipped a beat and numerous ideas flashed through his head. After thinking about all the things the old man had said, and the tone he said them in, Wang Lin took a deep breath. He became more respectful and said, "Junior is willing to take you as his teacher." The old man was stunned. After staring at Wang Ling for a long time, little by little, the coldness in his eyes disappeared. Then, he let out a laugh and waved his hand. A restriction landed on Wang Lin's forehead, then he said, "Good. You are really smart. This old man will take you as his disciple. Come with me then." After the restriction landed on Wang Lin's body, it immediately turned into a giant lotus, using Wang Lin's channels as roots, his blood vessel as branches, and his blood as nutrients. Wang Lin's expression didn't change at all and he said, "Disciple already has plans with Qiu Siping to help him with something, so I would like teacher to give me a few days." The old man's gaze fell on Qiu Siping. Qiu Siping struggled a bit. He clenched his teeth and said, "Senior, this is true. I would like to ask Senior to accommodate." The old man rolled his eyes and said, "I'll give you 1 month. After 1 month, go to the treasure refining pavilion in any city and tell them my name, Sun Dian, and I will know." With that, the old man looked at Wang Lin and let out a laugh. He tapped the turtle with his feet and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Qiu Siping pondered for a while. He gave Wang Lin a frightful look. He didn't ask anything about the old man but said with a heavy tone, "Brother Wang, I'll increase the speed of the boat so we can arrive in 2 days. I'll leave the matter of the restrictions in the cave to Brother Wang." Wang Lin nodded his head. He quickly sat down on the stern of the boat and pointed his finger at his brow. The devil Su Ligo and the second devil came out and floated around him. At the same time he slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag came out. This time, under his control, the restriction flag surrounded his body. Shortly after, a cold voice came out from the black mist. "Fellow cultivator Qiu, I'm going to go into closed-door cultivation for 2 days, so please don't disturb me." Qiu Siping immediately agreed. After looking at the black mist, he turned around and focused his attention on controlling the boat to make it go faster. After 2 days, the boat arrived at the desolate mountain. He turned around and looked at Wang Lin. After pondering a while, he sat down and waited for Wang Lin, rather than bothering him. After a few hours, the restriction flag around Wang Lin started to move. It soon shrunk down back to the size of a small flag and was put away. Wang Lin's face was somewhat pale. The lotus restriction placed on him by the old man wasn't that strict, so he had already cracked part of it. However, to completely remove it, he needed more time. But in these 2 days, Wang Lin came to a complete understanding of this restriction. This restriction acted as a tracker and from Wang Lin's understanding, the range was extremely large. After Qiu Siping saw Wang Lin come out of the black mist, he stood up and said, "Brother Wang, below us is where the cave is located." Wang Lin nodded and looked down. He suddenly left the boat and floated in the air. Qiu Siping formed a seal with his right hand and used a technique on the boat. The boat shrunk down to the size of his palm and he put it away. After doing that, he quickly went down. After looking around, he landed on some stone steps. He placed his right hand on a black rock and spit out a mouthful of golden core energy onto it. The black rock started to shine. Qiu Siping waved his hand and the rock floated into the air. Then his hand formed many seals and the black rock floated toward the mountain while shining. As the black rock floated toward the mountain, waves of ripples appeared on the mountainside and started to spread. From within the water ripples, a half-circle hole appeared in the mountain. Qiu Siping took a deep breath and looked toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin pondered a little. His divine eye lit up. After staring at the water ripple for a while, he formed 3 illusionary circles and sent them toward the water ripple. The moment the circle landed, the water ripples started to shake. Bumps appeared on the mountain. These bumps sometimes enlarged and sometimes shrunk. They were very strange. Wang Lin didn't even bat an eye. His hand moved, creating one illusionary circle after the other. Just then, one of the bumps in the water ripple suddenly broke. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he sent one of the illusionary circles to the location where the bump burst. But afterward, more bumps burst. Wang Lin quickly sent out the illusionary circles one by one, and they all landed on where the bumps had burst. As time passed, more and more bumps burst. Wang Lin gradually became unable to keep up with the speed the bumps were bursting. Qiu Siping had always been nervous, and after seeing that Wang Lin couldn't keep up anymore, he couldn't help but be worried. He slapped his bag of holding and 10 black rocks came out. Shortly after, both of his hands worked on the block rocks. Soon, he sent one of the black rocks toward one of the bumps that had burst, and Wang Lin was too late to send an illusionary circle to. He revealed an aching look as he sent out the black rock, but soon became serious. His hand constantly moved. Whenever there was a time Wang Lin couldn't keep up, he filled the gap with the black rocks. After Wang Lin saw this, his eyes lit up. He purposely slowed down a bit, forcing Qiu Siping to use the black rocks to fill in the gaps. Eventually, all 10 black rocks were used and Wang Lin's hand suddenly sped up and sent out dozens of illusionary circles. A boom appeared from the water ripples and it split in half, creating an opening to the entrance. Qiu Siping's expression became excited and he charged into the opening. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he followed behind. The hole wasn't big. Inside the cave were 4 stone doors. After Wang Lin entered, he saw Qiu Siping in front of one of the stone doors with a look of horror on his face. Wang Lin ignored Qiu Siping and looked at the stone doors. After examining them, he found that there were restrictions placed on all 4 doors. His gaze landed on a door to the left and found that the restrictions on that door were the easiest to break. He pondered for a while. His hand started to move, formed an illusionary circle, and he threw it at the door. Suddenly, the stone door began to quiver and slowly opened up. Wang Lin looked inside the room and his eyes suddenly widened. The stone room was completely empty, with only a circular array in the middle. This array looked very old, but upon closer inspection, Wang Lin found that the material used to create this array was still in good condition. And Wang Lin was immediately able to see through what this array was as well. This was an array that could instantly transfer people millions of kilometers. Qiu Siping turned his head and looked at the array. He blandly said, "This is an ancient transfer array. When my teacher found this cave, he also found the transfer array. Although the transfer array is kept in top condition because it is in a cave, to activate it requires top-quality spirit stone. I have never heard of anyone having top-quality spirit stone in the Sea of Devils, so I have never opened up this transfer array." Wang Lin didn't speak, but he secretly became very excited. It had to be said that after leaving the land of the ancient god, one of his main goals was to find an ancient transfer array, but he couldn't find much in XIAN City. His original plan was to find information on ancient transfer arrays and find an ancient transfer array himself and fix it. But with this transfer array in front of him, he wouldn't need to do any of that. The only pity was that he didn't know where this transfer array lead to. Qiu Siping pointed at one of the rooms and said, "This stone room to the left is a storage room that used to contain many books, but I have already taken them all." With that, he formed a few seals with his hand and set it on one of the stone doors. Suddenly, the stone door opened up, revealing an empty room. This room contained the remains of the ancient cultivator, but it is no longer there. My teacher refined the remains into pills. With that, he once again opened another door, and it was empty as well. Qiu Siping glanced at Wang Lin and slowly said, "My teacher and senior brother are in the room to the right. Once the room is open, we will take one nascent soul for each of us. My teacher's nascent soul will belong to you and I'll take my senior brother's. Brother Wang, I know we had some misunderstandings when we first met, but I believe that, during our trip here, those misunderstandings have been resolved." Wang Lin calmly said, "If your conclusion is wrong and both nascent souls aren't in Guishi, then what?" Qiu Siping shook his head and said, "Brother Wang, you can rest assured that both of them are in Guishi, but I have prepared something just in case." With that, he took a deep breath and took out a purple incense stick. He lit the stick up and a burst of sandalwood fragrance filled the room. Heart-confusing fragrance? Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately realized what it was. This heart-confusing fragrance was a material for making pills. If combined with other drugs, it could calm the heart and help resist outside devils. But if used alone, especially if used on someone who was being invaded by a devil, then their injuries would increase and the devil would be receiving outside help. Qiu Siping nodded and calmly said, "Yes, Brother Wang can rest assured now. However, this restriction is dangerous, so Brother Wang should be careful." With that, he took a few steps back, making room for Wang Lin. Wang Lin stared at the door for a while, then he moved his right hand and sent an illusionary circle toward it. However, the moment the illusionary circle fell on the door, a beast head appeared on it. It roared and tried to swallow Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained the same. He slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag appeared. He growled, "Devour!" And a giant hand came out of the flag and dragged the beast into the flag. Shortly after, Wang Lin's hand kept moving and illusionary circles appeared one after another and landed on the door. As each circle landed, another beast head would appear. Slowly, the number of beast heads increased, but the restriction showed no signs of being broken. Qiu Siping slightly frowned. He pondered for a while, then took out 4 more black rocks. He looked at them with a painful look. After caressing them a bit with his hand, he sent them out in 4 directions and they landed on the stone door. Qiu Siping shouted, "Brother Wang, I can only suppress the beast heads for 10 breaths. Quick!" Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He held the restriction flag in his hand and waved it. Immediately, the hundreds and thousands of restrictions on the restriction flag came out and slammed toward the stone door. Wang Lin wasn't confident that he could break the restriction on this stone door in a short amount of time, so he decided to use the second method, which was to open it by force. Thousands of restrictions landed on the door and countless beast heads struggled to come out, but the 4 black stones on the door released a gentle light that prevented the beast heads from coming out. The moment the restrictions hit the door, a series of tremors suddenly started causing dirt and dust to fall from the cave ceiling. It felt like the whole cave was going to collapse. The moment the door was opened by the restriction flag, 2 dim, yellow lights flew out from the room and tried to escape from the cave. But just at that moment, the 2 yellow lights started to slow down and began to wobble. The lights became even more dim, as if they were about to dissipate. This was the heart-confusing fragrance coming into effect. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The moment the 2 dim, yellow lights came out, he saw that within the yellow lights were 2 nascent souls that were almost transparent. From how their color was fading, they looked like they were about to collapse at any time, and with the help of the heart-confusing fragrance, they had reached their limit. Wang Lin and Qiu Siping moved almost at the same time. Wang Lin moved a bit faster and grabbed hold of the elder nascent soul. Without a word, Wang Lin charged out of the cave. The moment Wang Lin charged out of the cave started to collapse and a series of tremors occurred. Qiu Siping also quickly left the cave. After he came out, he clasped his hands toward Wang Lin and quickly left, as if he was afraid that Wang Lin would act against him. Wang Lin held the nascent soul. He touched his forehead and the devil Su Ligua came out. The moment Su Ligua saw the nascent soul, his face filled with greed. Wang Lin snorted. Su Ligua suddenly trembled and revealed a look of fear. He obediently took the nascent soul and returned to Wang Lin's consciousness. After that, Wang Lin looked at the collapsed cave and then looked at the direction Qiu Siping left. He blinked a few times as he pondered. Eventually, he gave up on the idea of chasing after Qiu Siping and killing him, because after all, his soul could only hold 1 nascent soul of power at the moment. If he were to add another one onto that, then there was a chance of him losing control and getting possessed by a devil too. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He was very excited. After devouring this nascent soul, he should be able to break into the nascent realm. He calmed himself down and quickly left. After traveling for 1 day, Wang Lin stopped in the middle of a desert. He purposely traveled a very desolate flight path. He looked around and knew that, within a 10,000-kilometer radius, there were very few people and beasts. He stomped his feet and his body immediately sunk into the ground. He stopped after reaching a depth of 2,000 feet. He then created a cave and sat down cross-legged. He pointed his finger at his brow and the devil Su Ligo came out. Wang Lin looked at Su Ligo. Su Ligo obediently took out the nascent soul that was about to collapse and then stood to the side, staring at the nascent soul. Wang Lin didn't even look at Su Ligo. He closed his eyes for a few breaths, then reopened them with a determined look. He opened his mouth and swallowed the nascent soul. The moment the nascent soul entered his body, the ancient god tactic immediately went to work like a great millstone. As the nascent soul dissolved, it released large amounts of energy that filled Wang Lin's body. Wang Lin immediately stopped the ancient god tactic to prevent it from using all this power on refining his body. As a result, under his control, this powerful spiritual energy moved through his body and toward his core. His core suddenly expanded and its color darkened. Its size continued to expand until cracks appeared on its surface. A sign of nascent soul slowly appeared in his body. But, just at that moment, the G realm in his consciousness activated without his control. It quickly left his consciousness and traveled through his body toward his core. Wang Lin fiercely opened his eyes. No matter how much he tried to control his G realm, he couldn't gain control over it. The moment his G realm landed on his core, it exploded. After the explosion happened inside Wang Lin's body, the spiritual energy released by the explosion of his core collided with the spiritual energy from the nascent soul he devoured. The impact of the two spiritual energies sent all that energy out of Wang Lin's channels as they swept across his body. Wang Lin's body was thrown around by the explosion in his body. He coughed out several mouthfuls of blood and his face immediately paled. He struggled to sit up. Wang Lin's eyes were dull and he was silent. After a long time, some light came back to his eyes and he closed them. After checking his body, he let out a crazed laugh. After crazily laughing for a long time, no matter how one listened to it, there was a hint of grief. Wang Lin's eyes were bloodshot as he muttered, G-Realm Soul, G-Realm Soul, G-Realm Soul. The core inside his body didn't completely explode, but shrunk to the size of a thumbnail. Wang Lin had already expected the G-Realm to prevent him from reaching nascent soul. Although he wasn't sure before, he had just confirmed that the greatest barrier to reach nascent soul was his G-Realm. Wang Lin's success was due to his G-Realm and his downfall was also due to his G-Realm, but what Wang Lin really wanted to know was why this happened. Why his G-Realm would go out of control and attack his core when he was trying to reach nascent soul. He bitterly took a deep breath and started to cultivate to recover his body. After 3 days, Wang Lin opened both of his eyes. After leaving the cave, he quickly moved to find a town. After half a month, Wang Lin had been to almost every city in the area, but of course he didn't go to any of the treasure refining pavilions. Within these cities, he didn't even find any trace of information about G-Realm. In his confusion, he suddenly remembered Qiu Saiping's cave. Inside the cave were many books, even books that were recorded on bamboo, displaying how old they were. They would break with any fluctuation of spiritual energy, so they couldn't be stored in a piece of jade. Thinking about this, Wang Lin quickly moved toward Qiu Saiping's cave. After 5 days, Wang Lin arrived. He didn't care if Qiu Saiping was there. If he were to try to stop him, then Wang Lin would kill him without any hesitation. Although Qiu Saiping received a nascent soul, forming a nascent soul takes more than half a month, so Wang Lin wasn't worried about the current Qiu Saiping. Wang Lin sank into the ground and found the cave. As for the restrictions on the cave, they were no problem for Wang Lin. After breaking through them all, he entered. Wang Lin scanned the cave with his divine sense and found that Qiu Saiping was not inside. He walked toward the room with all the books. As for the restriction on the room, it only took Wang Lin 3 hours to break through it and enter. After entering, Wang Lin took a deep breath and calmed his heart before starting to search through the books. Among these bamboo books was mostly information about restrictions. After scanning them, Wang Lin put them away, as none of them even contained the words G-Realm. Wang Lin's heart became heavy and he continued to look. Suddenly, his gaze fell onto a piece of bamboo. This bamboo looked extremely old and even showed some signs of damage. After picking it up, Wang Lin opened it up and his body trembled. He took it to a table and slowly opened it up. Most of what was on the bamboo was about restrictions, but on the back a row of small words was carved. In the cultivation world, there can be a change in spiritual power that will result in something that could be called the G-Realm. I have studied the G realm for many years, and I have left my research for the future generations. This mysterious force known as G realm, from my view, should be a divine technique. Only a divine technique would have the power to instantly kill a cultivator of the same realm. The final evolution of the G realm is believed to be the nascent soul stage by many other researchers, but after reading some historical text, I found a very interesting phenomenon. First of all, I want to say that in the historical text, there is no direct indication of who has G realm, but from the context of the document, I managed to find track of several cultivators with G realm. Among these people, some stopped at core formation, some stopped at nascent soul, and some stopped at spirit severing. It could be said that there is no pattern, and it all depends on each individual. In fact, all the breakthroughs in my G realm research are all thanks to one person. I won't say this person's name, but this person is the first G realm cultivator I have met. His cultivation level is nascent soul. This person wanted to break through nascent soul and reach spirit severing, so he came to me for help, but in the end I still failed. Wang Lin was immersed in the text, reading it word by word. After a long time, he revealed a very confused expression. According to the record on the bamboo book, Wang Lin immediately realized that his own G realm limit was core formation, otherwise, his G realm wouldn't go out of control when he tried to form his nascent soul. As a result, his cultivation will be stuck at the late stage of core formation without any chance to break though in the future. Wang Lin found this unacceptable. If his cultivation couldn't break through, then those 400 years of suffering would never be released and Situ Nan would never wake up and all that he had done would stop right here. Tung Haoyan would still be able to keep on living, and he would never get his revenge. He would also never be able to return to the country of Zhao because Tung Haoyan would not let him go. All of his dreams shattered at this moment. His success came from his G realm. His downfall also came from his G realm. Wang Lin clenched his fist and revealed a monstrously unwilling expression. If he wanted to reach the nascent soul, then he must give up his G realm. The only way was to give up all the power of his G realm so he could reach nascent soul. This was a very hard choice. The person who left the message on the bamboo book came up with one idea for the nascent soul cultivator he was helping, and that was to waste his cultivation. As his cultivation would scatter, his G realm would also scatter, allowing him to start cultivating again and break through. That nascent soul cultivator didn't choose that method in the end. Now Wang Lin was faced with this difficult decision. If he didn't give up his G realm, then he wouldn't be able to break through. Everything he tried in order to form his nascent soul was obstructed by his G realm. But if he gave up, then all the cultivation he had worked so hard to obtain in the past 400 years would be wasted. Also, he was currently in the Sea of Devils, a very dangerous place, where he might die before his cultivation reaches back to what it is now. After a very long time, Wang Lin's eyes revealed a determined look. He took a deep breath and put the bamboo away as he slowly walked out of the cave. The first thing he must do is completely remove the lotus restriction on his body. Only after completely removing the lotus restriction would Wang Lin be able to continue with the plan he had formed. After he walked out of the cave, he took a deep breath and a cold light filled his eyes. He sank into the ground and quickly left by using the earth escape technique. A few days later, Wang Lin returned to the underground cave he had made before. There he sat down cross-legged and took out his restriction flag. The moment the flag appeared, the entire cave was covered with thousands of restrictions. Wang Lin took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. He guided the chaotic spiritual energy in his body to move along the paths of his body's channels. Time flew by. He slowly cycled his spiritual energy through his body and through his core to repair the damages. Gradually, his core recovered and his cultivation returned to the peak of core formation late stage. Meanwhile, Wang Lin quickly cut his spiritual power off from his channels. Then, he gathered the spiritual energy in his body and slammed it against the lotus restriction. When he was trying to break into nascent soul and his G realm attacked his core, the explosion that happened in his body loosened the lotus restriction. This time, Wang Lin was intentionally attacking the lotus restriction. It weakened a lot. 3 days later, Wang Lin, whose eyes had been closed this whole time, suddenly opened his eyes. He moved his finger and tapped multiple spots on his chest. Every time his finger touched his chest, there was a ripple of spiritual energy on his finger. Slowly, as his hand began to move faster and faster, Spots of light suddenly appeared on Wang Lin's chest. These spots of light came from inside Wang Lin's body. Soon, the spots increased and gradually formed the shape of a lotus. Wang Lin growled, placed his hands on each side of his chest, and slowly pushed them out. Those light points slowly moved out of his body. The lights intertwined into the shape of a white lotus and looked as if they were slowly leaving his body. Until the lights were floating 3 inches outside of his body, there were still slivers of light coming from the lotus connecting to this body. Giant beads of sweat appeared on Wang Lin's forehead. His whole body was also soaked in sweat, but in order to completely remove this lotus restriction, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and suddenly pushed out his hands. Suddenly, all of the connections from the lotus to Wang Lin were pushed out and floated forward. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He quickly slapped his bag of holding and a small beast flew out. It hit the lotus restriction. Shortly after, the lotus restriction became like a mad demon and quickly surrounded the small beast. After flashing a few times, the restriction quickly sunk into the small beast and disappeared. It was not until this moment that Wang Lin let out a breath. A cold light filled his eyes and he placed his hand on the small beast's head. The beast let out a burst of hissing sounds and quickly flew out of the cave. The restrictions surrounding the cave opened up a small passage for the beast as it got closer. Even the dirt in the ground opened up a passage under Wang Lin's control. The beast left with any trouble and quickly flew off into the distance once it got above ground. Wang Lin let out a sneer. He didn't know much about that old man, but he thought it can't be anything good. Now that the lotus restriction had been lifted and placed onto the beast, if that old man wanted to search for him, then he would actually be searching for that small beast. But Wang Lin knew that this simple trick would only be able to buy him a little bit of time. It won't be able to fool the old man for long, but what Wang Lin needed the most was time. He took a deep breath, then quickly moved out of the cave. As he exited the cave, he put away the restriction flag and quickly left. Wang Lin knew that he couldn't stay in the Sea of Devils for long, or there will be a lot of trouble. If everything goes as planned, then once he reaches Nascent Soul, aside from a few of the old spirit-severing cultivators, there should be no one that could oppose him. It's just that there was a problem with breaking into the Nascent Soul stage, so his plans needed a little change. After Wang Lin left the cave, his speed reached its limit and his body moved like a meteor into the distance. The next morning, Wang Lin arrived back at the ancient cultivation cave, where he got the Nascent Soul with Cho Siping. After arriving, he scanned the area with his divine sense. After making sure there was no one around, he slapped his bag of holding and his poison sword flew out. With a point of his finger, the sword formed a swirl and charged into the rubble. Soon, a tunnel was carved by the sword. After looking at the tunnel formed by the sword, Wang Lin thought, "Goodbye, Sea of Devils." He turned and entered the tunnel. Inside, he found the room with the ancient transfer array. He didn't enter the room, but turned around and waved his hand, causing the tunnel to collapse and sealing the entrance. Shortly after, his hand moved, forming many restrictions to completely cover the cave. Only then did he walk into the stone room. The stone room had also collapsed a bit, but as Wang Lin and Cho Siping were fleeing the cave, he paid special attention to this room and secretly sent out a restriction to protect it. So, although the place collapsed a bit, it didn't damage the transfer array. After carefully removing the rocks from the room, Wang Lin carefully studied the transfer array for a bit, then took out a glowing spirit stone. This spirit stone was crystal clear and looked like it had clouds floating inside. This spirit stone was an extremely rare high-quality spirit stone, and also something that was required to open the ancient transfer array. After hesitating for a while, Wang Lin's eyes revealed a determined look. He placed the high-quality spirit stone into one of the sockets in the ancient transfer array, and looked at it with a glow in his eyes. He watched as the high-quality spirit stone began to shine and the cloud inside it started to move. Shortly after, purple lines began to spread from the spirit stone and covered the entire transfer array. Then, thunderous sounds began to emit from the transfer array. Shortly after, a circle of light appeared from the transfer array and rose into the air. Then more circles of light appeared, rose into the air toward the first circle, and overlapped each other. The circles suddenly started to rotate. Their rotation became faster and faster, and Wang Lin, who was inside the circle, became blurry, then disappeared. After Wang Lin disappeared, The circles of light stopped and returned to the transfer array. The transfer array returned back to the way it was. In an endless mountain range millions of kilometers away from the Sea of Devils, a 10-foot thick beam of light fell from the sky and sent shockwaves into the surroundings. Within the mountain was a canyon, and in the canyon was a small valley with a very old-looking transfer array. There was a stirring cloud of dust covering the valley. After the dust settled, a black shadow walked out of the transfer array. This person had a head of white hair and was completely covered in dust. It was Wang Lin. Wang Lin coughed a few times. He formed a seal with his hand and created a gust of wind. The wind quickly cleared out the area. The dust on his body was also blown away. Wang Lin raised his head and looked at the surroundings. Bright sunlight fell from the sky into Wang Lin's eyes, causing him to blink. The moment Wang Lin studied his surroundings, he knew that he was no longer in the Sea of Devils. The mountains were covered with greens and there were flying beasts he didn't know of floating in the sky. Wang Lin's eyes squinted. It had been a long time since he had seen the glaring sunlight. The Sea of Devils never had any sunlight all year around, and even in these last months, most of the sky was covered by black clouds that showed the land with black rain. He took a deep breath, then turned toward the transfer array and took out his poisoned sword. He cut out a piece of the transfer array and placed it into his bag of holding. Only then did he feel relaxed. Now, even if that crazy old man found traces of him, the old man wouldn't be able to use the transfer array to chase after him. And now that the lotus restriction was also removed, Wang Lin's safety was guaranteed. Wang Lin jumped into the air. He immediately noticed that this place's spiritual energy was very thick, and the higher he flew into the air, the thicker it got. He floated in the air and created a restriction to place in the canyon to serve as a marker. Then he quickly left without looking back. As Wang Lin was flying, he spread out his divine sense to check the area and slowly increased his search range. He didn't know where he was, and the most important thing right now was to find out where he was. Then, if conditions allow, Wang Lin will begin his plan on breaking through to the nascent soul stage. This was a very time-consuming plan. He must prepare a lot of things to make sure this plan comes to fruition without any problems. Destroying his cultivation meant that he would have to start all over again, which was something he refused to do. Not destroying his cultivation meant that he will be stuck at the late stage of core formation, and will not be able to have his revenge. To not have to destroy his cultivation and break through to nascent soul was his goal. With those two goals in mind, there was only one method left that might barely work. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He spread out his divine sense and scanned the surrounding area as he flew by at an extremely quick speed. Suddenly he stopped and looked north. 2,000 kilometers north were two cultivators heading east. Both cultivators were male. One of them was pretty young and was only at the early stage of foundation building. The other was a middle-aged man who was at the early stage of core formation. Mai Guorong was a disciple of the Hao Ran sect. Following the order of his teacher, he was going to the Cloud Sky sect for their biannual Kailing gathering. The so-called Kailing gathering was just a pill auction hosted by the Cloud Sky sect. The Cloud Sky sect was famous for their pill production in the cultivation country of Chu. Even some rank 4 countries would come to trade for their pills, but that only happened every 10 years in the largest Kailing gathering. As for these biannual gatherings, they were mostly for the younger generation of the cultivation country of Chu to meet and compete. In these small Kailing gatherings there wouldn't be any precious pills, only some standard stuff. But for these young cultivators they were still things they couldn't get enough of. It has to be said that a pill made by the Cloud Sky sect is at least 10% better than other pills. As a result, all of the pills made by the Cloud Sky sect are very much in demand. Also, the Cloud Sky sect doesn't do any trades with outsiders unless it's during these Kailing gatherings. So, even though it was only a 2-year gap between gatherings, every sect in the cultivation country of Zhao would send many of their younger disciples to come. Mai Guorong was very proud that he was picked to come from the numerous disciples in the sect, but he also knew that the reason he was able to participate was because he had a good teacher. Thinking about that, Mai Guorong's gaze fell on the middle-aged man in front of him. This person looked very ordinary. His face was very yellow and his complexion made him look like he could die at any moment, but Mai Guorong didn't dare to take this person lightly. He wholeheartedly respected the person before him, because this middle-aged man was his teacher and was also at the early stage of core formation. These facts made my Guorong feel very lucky to have such a teacher. It has to be said that to be taken as a disciple by a core formation cultivator was very rare, even in the Hao Ran sect. My Guorong's status in the sect immediately shot up, and he instantly became an inner disciple. Although he was still not a core disciple, if my Guorong's cultivation rises a bit more, to late-stage foundation building, then he will automatically become a core disciple. What also made him respect his teacher a lot was that his teacher was one of the few alchemists in the sect. Although the pills his teacher made weren't as good as the Cloud Sky sects, they were not that far off. As a result, his teacher status was very high in the sect, and as a result of that, my Guorong's status in the sect rose as well. Maintain your calm and don't think about unnecessary things. We are very close to the Cloud Sky sect. Don't lose any face for the Hao Ran sect. That hoarse voice interrupted my Guorong's thoughts. He stopped his daydreaming and closely followed behind his teacher. After a while, my Guorong looked at his teacher and curiously asked, "Teacher, the Cloud Sky sect." Before he could finish speaking, he saw the yellow-faced middle-aged man's expression suddenly change. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped and turned around with his eyes focused on something in the distance. He shouted, "Shut up!" My Guorong was stunned. He turned and looked, but only saw the clouds and the blue sky, nothing abnormal at all. He had some doubts, but he suddenly heard a series of thunderous roars and saw the clouds in the distance get pushed forward by a strong force. My Guorong's face suddenly changed, revealing a horrified expression. At the same time, he saw a shadow moving like lightning toward them. In just a few breaths, that shadow was already closing in. My Guorong could clearly see now that this person was wearing black clothes and had a head of white hair. His expression was cold and felt very demonic. This person's cultivation in my Guorong's eyes was as deep as the ocean, and the person's cold gaze made anyone who looked feel horror. My Guorong quickly lowered his head. He stood behind his teacher. His face was pale and his heart felt cold. Such strong killing intent. My Guorong's teacher, Hao Ran's alchemist Su Li's pupils involuntarily shrunk. He sent out his divine sense and immediately found that the man's cultivation was much higher than his. The aura the man emitted shocked him even more. In his view, although this person hadn't reached the nascent soul stage, the feeling he got was exactly the same as when he met the nascent soul cultivators in the sect. As a result, he didn't dare mess with this person. Not even the nascent soul cultivators in the Hao Ran sect had such a strong killing intent like this person. Su Li had spent his life learning pill making, so he had a very keen sense of spiritual energy fluctuations. He could almost imagine how much people this person must have killed to have such a strong killing intent. He must be careful around this person, or there will be disaster. With that, he quickly clasped his hands and said, "Fellow cultivator, I am Hao Ran sect's Su Li, and this is my disciple. Sir, you seem to be in a rush. What is the matter? If there is anything I can do, I'll help without delay." The white-haired youth was Wang Lin. He scanned both cultivators and his eyes landed on Su Li. He clasped his hands and said, "Fellow cultivator, what cultivation country am I in?" Su Li was stunned. He looked at Wang Lin for a bit, then answered, "This is the cultivation county of Chu." "Where did fellow cultivator come from?" "Cultivation country of Chu," Wang Lin muttered to himself, not answering the other's question. He slapped his bag of holding. His actions caused Su Li's expression to change greatly. He quickly grabbed hold of his disciple and swiftly took a few steps back with a cautious look on his face. Wang Lin looked at him. He opened his hand and showed a piece of jade. He put the piece of jade on his forehead and a map appeared in his mind. This was the piece of jade he had gotten from Zhou Zihong at the Battle God Temple. It contained the map of countries near the country of Huafan. When he heard that it was the country of Chu, he felt like he had heard of this name somewhere before. After checking the jade, he immediately found out roughly where he was at the moment. The country of Chu had a border with Hofan to the north, Xianwu to the east, and even a small border with the Sea of Devils. As for the rest, it was a mountain range called Broken Rocks. It could be said that the cultivation country of Chu was a country very close to the Broken Rocks mountain range. According to the description in the piece of jade, this country was very large and contained a lot of cultivators. As a cultivation country, the country of Chu was very close to rising up into a rank 4 country. This was because there were more than 10 people at the late stage of nascent soul in the cultivation country of Chu. These powerful cultivators were the core of the country. As long as one of those people managed to break into the spirit-severing stage, the entire country will be raised to a rank 4 country. This was why, when country of Hofen raised up to 4th rank, they decided to invade the country of Xianwu instead of Chu. After all, compared to Chu, the country of Xianwu was a much better choice for Hofan. There was also some information about some sects in the country of Chu. Wang Lin checked the jade for a bit, then put it away. He looked at Su Li and asked, "Fellow cultivator, what part of Chu is this place?" Su Li kept his hand on his bag of holding. He was very alert. When he heard Wang Lin's question, he pondered a bit, then answered, "This is the Cloud Sky Mountain Range." Wang Lin nodded. He looked around and stared into the distance, then blandly said, "So, if I continue for 10,000 kilometers, at the top of the Cloud Sky Mountain Range, is the Cloud Sky sect?" Su Li's eyes revealed a shocked expression. He said, "Does Sir have business with the Cloud Sky sect?" Wang Lin faintly smiled. He looked at Su Li and clasped his hands. "Thank you. Farewell," he said. With that, Wang Lin quickly moved, forming a trail of light, and disappeared. It wasn't until Wang Lin left that Su Li let out a breath. His back was covered in sweat, and when he was hit by a quick breeze, he could feel a cold sensation on his back. The pressure Wang Lin brought on him was enormous. The fact that Su Li was an alchemist meant that his resolve was much better than that of other cultivators of his level. If it wasn't, he would have completely panicked when he was talking to Wang Lin. He took in a deep breath, then took a look at his disciple. Mai Guorong's eyes were still filled with fear. He looked at the direction Wang Lin went in and said, Teacher, what cultivation level was that guy at? Was he a nascent soul senior?" Su Li shook his head and said, "That person was filled with killing intent. If my guess is correct, he must have escaped from the Sea of Devils. Those people aren't uncommon in this country of Chu, but this is the first time I have seen someone with killing intent that strong." Mai Guorong was stunned. "Killing intent?" he asked. Su Li slowly said, "Every time you kill someone, you gain a bit of killing intent, and after enough killing intent is gathered, it turns into a hostile aura. This hostile aura is very good cultivation material for some cultivators. After the hostility aura has been gathered on someone for a very long time, it turns into killing intent, and this person's killing intent could be considered monstrous. He didn't use any techniques. Just based on the killing intent he gives off normally, it is enough to cause fear in people's hearts. I don't know if this person knows how to use his killing intent. If he does, then it could even affect nascent soul cultivators." Mai Guorong took a deep breath. He slowly asked, "Teacher, according to what you're saying, that person hasn't reached the nascent soul stage?" Su Li pondered for a while. He nodded and said, "Even though he isn't at the nascent soul stage, he is very close. If my perception isn't wrong, this person has already reached the peak of late-stage core formation. To avoid unnecessary trouble, don't talk about this matter with other people. Even after returning to the Hao Ran sect, don't tell anyone about this. You understand?" Mai Guorong quickly nodded. Even if Su Li hadn't said anything, he wouldn't have talked about the fearsome cultivator they had just met, because the impression that that person left was simply too terrifying. He didn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble. As for Wang Lin, after he determined his location, he quickly flew forward while scanning the area with his divine sense. According to the map, the Cloud Sky sect should be just up ahead. Wang Lin secretly nodded his head. He was glad that that teacher and disciple duo didn't lie to him. After determining its location, Wang Lin stopped. Since the Cloud Sky sect was just up ahead, he decided to find a place nearby to go into closed-door cultivation. Wang Lin stopped at a mountainside about 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers from the Cloud Sky sect. He looked around and revealed a satisfied look. Then he slapped his bag of holding and a flying sword came out. He sent the flying sword swirling into the side of the mountain. Soon, a cave was carved into the side of the cliff. The cave was built according to Wang Lin's preference, with 2 rooms. After Wang Lin entered the cave, he pondered for a bit, then opened up another room. After all that, he left the cave. He slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag came out. Both of his hands formed a seal and pointed at the flag. The flag started to wave without any wind and quickly became 10 times larger. Then Wang Lin's hand started to form multiple seals and sending out multiple beams of light. The restriction flag quickly started to stretch indefinitely, forming a canopy that could cover the entire sky. Wang Lin calmly shouted, "Scatter!" With those words, the black canopy immediately began to tremble. Thousands of restrictions fell from the flag and into the mountain range. Soon, all of the restrictions on the flag came out and covered the entire mountain range. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He waved his hand and the restriction flag shrunk and returned to his hand. He waved his right hand and the restriction flag pierced into the mountain. From the outside, the cave disappeared from the mountain range and everything else looked exactly the same as before. Wang Lin pondered a little. His hand moved and created several restrictions. He placed them in different locations in the mountain range. Finally, after the restrictions formed a tight defensive formation, he relaxed. His body moved forward. When his body touched the side of the mountain, his body disappeared and he entered the cave. Inside the cave, he quickly touched his bag of holding and an object appeared in his hand. This was the green dragon jade that Li Muwen had gifted to him. Although there were some cracks on it, it didn't affect its usage. After Wang Lin looked at it for a while, he activated a spiritual technique on the jade. Suddenly, a roar emitted from the jade. A green dragon came out of it and circled around Wang Lin. The dragon became larger and larger as it circled Wang Lin. The dragon went through the walls of the cave as if there was nothing in its way. The green dragon let out a roar and fused into the cave, thus forming another protective layer. This cave could be said to be the most secure place Wang Lin had ever created. Wang Lin spent a lot of effort on the defenses of this cave. The reason being that unless something really unexpected happens, he will be living here for a very long time. Wang Lin stood in the cave and pondered for a very long time. He revealed a determined look and pointed his hand to his brow. The devil Su Ligua and the second devil came out of his forehead. After the two devils appeared, they each had different reactions. The moment the second devil appeared, it instantly looked at Wang Lin with a look of devotion and admiration. Now, as long as Wang Lin commands it, even if he was ordered to fight a spirit-severing cultivator, he would go without any hesitation, even if death was certain. As for Su Ligua, when he appeared, he secretly looked around, but put on a respectful look and a pleasing smile in front of Wang Lin. Wang Lin pointed at a stone room and said, "From today onward, you two devils will live in that stone room. If you leave that room without my permission, then you will be erased." Su Ligua was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, the second devil didn't hesitate at all and floated toward the stone room Wang Lin pointed to. Su Ligua hesitated for a while, but he quickly swallowed his words. If number two agreed that easily, then if he talked back and hesitated, that would mean he was beaten by number two, so he quickly went into the room as well. After the two devils entered the room, Wang Lin sent out his G realm and scanned the area. He left behind some of his divine sense before he withdrew it. If the two devils don't listen and try to leave the room, they will be attacked by the G realm. Wang Lin had to be on guard because those two devils were created by him. Normally, he wouldn't be afraid of any changes, but the thing he was about to do couldn't have any accidents, so he trapped the two devils in the room. After that, Wang Lin pondered for a while, then walked into the room in the center. He sat down cross-legged and took a deep breath. He pointed at his brow and a rainbow-colored ball of light floated out of his brow and became more solid, revealing a heaven-defying look. After looking at the heaven-revolting bead for a while, he waved his right hand and the bead floated to the side. Then he took out several jade bottles and placed them on the left and right sides. Afterward, he quietly closed his eyes and started to meditate. Time flew by and a year had already passed. In this last year, aside from gathering the liquid from the bead, Wang Lin hardly moved at all. During his meditation over the past year, he compressed all of his excess spiritual energy into 3 swirls, and within these 3 swirls was that divine retribution red line. In a year's time, Wang Lin had managed to completely suppress the red thread, but he didn't dare relax at all. Although the red thread was small, it contained the power of a divine retribution. If it was not handled properly, the result would be his body being destroyed by the thread. Although his body had already undergone 1 reconstruction, he didn't want to use his body as a test. In addition to that, Wang Lin had been spending the rest of his time studying the avatar technique. This was his way of getting around his inability to break through to the nascent soul stage. Even now, Wang Lin still clearly remembered the cave in the back mountain of the war god's temple. He was reaching into his memories to remember the avatar technique carved in the cave. Back then, he spent a lot of time studying the technique and learning its secrets. This technique was used to create another real body as a doppelganger, relying on the avatar to increase the cultivation speed. Then, when breaking through to the nascent soul stage, save the avatar fuse back into the body and increase the chance of breaking through. However, the avatar had a fatal flaw. It had no cultivation when it was created, and its lifespan would only be 30 years. The reason Wang Lin didn't use this method back then was because he didn't have enough pills for himself, so how would he have anything for his avatar? But now, Wang Lin saw a method in this technique to allow him to not only preserve his cultivation, but to also reach the nascent soul stage. Then plan was to use the avatar to reach the nascent soul stage in 30 years, then fuse it back with this body, allowing him to bypass the block that was preventing him from reaching the nascent soul stage. This way, he won't need to destroy his cultivation to break through to nascent soul stage. However, there was one difficult part in this plan, and that was for his avatar to break into the nascent soul stage in merely 30 years. With the Heaven Revolting Space's help, the time could be extended. With the normal 6 times the training time in the Heaven Revolting Space, Wang Lin had 180 years for his avatar to reach the nascent soul stage. But there was another very important problem, and that was pills. This problem will be solved at the Cloud Sky Sect. This was also why, after Wang Lin arrived and found out that the Cloud Sky Sect was near, he decided to do his closed-door training here. Wang Lin's expression remained calm. Before him were 3 white bottles filled with liquid gathered from the Heaven Revolting Bead throughout this year. This liquid was the first gift he had for his avatar. After pondering for a while, his eyes revealed a determined look. His hands formed a seal, and he followed the steps of the avatar technique to create his avatar. This avatar technique was not very difficult if you could see through all of the details in the technique, as it had no relationship to one's talent or power. Otherwise, Chan Chong, who had the worst talent at the War God Temple, wouldn't have been the only one aside from the creator to have seen through the secret of the avatar technique. Wang Lin's expression remained the same, but it caught his interest. This so-called Guishi was when a nascent soul cultivator got invaded by demons and became trapped inside their nascent soul. The nascent soul couldn't leave the body, and the body entered a sleep-like state. This state was named Guishi. The only way to fix this problem was to place the cultivator in a safe place and allow them to drive the demons out of their body on their own. If someone from the outside wanted to help, then they must be several times stronger than the cultivator trapped in the Guishi state, or even stronger by a whole realm. Otherwise, the trapped cultivator would just have to tough it out alone. If a cultivator was stuck in Guishi for a very long time, then the demon would completely take over. Their soul would eventually disappear and their body would rot. But, in general, most cultivators that enter Guishi will wake up. However, they lose some of their cultivation, which still beats losing their life. This Guishi wasn't a very common thing in the cultivation world. At least Wang Lin had yet to hear of any cultivator stuck in Guishi. After Qiu Siping finished speaking, he looked at Wang Lin, trying to find some clues. However, Wang Lin's expression didn't change at all the entire time. It was still as calm as always. Wang Lin pondered a little. The red light in his eyes dulled and he asked, "How do you know where there are Guishi cultivators?" A wave of relief washed over Qiu Siping. As long as Wang Lin was asking questions, that meant that the earlier deal of only getting 3 sentences was null. Qiu Siping didn't doubt at all that if his 3 sentences earlier hadn't impressed Wang Lin would have killed him without any hesitation. Both of them were at the late stage of core formation, yet there was such a big gap in power. Qiu Siping bitterly smiled in his heart. He felt that the only reason Wang Lin was stronger was because Wang Lin had some treasure that allowed him to increase his attack power. How else would he be completely helpless in a fight against him? When he heard Wang Lin's question, he quickly said, "Fellow cultivator, this is a long story. How about we sit down and you let me tell it to you?" Wang Lin looked at him and slightly nodded. Qiu Siping quickly flew toward the mountain. Black fog appeared under his feet and quickly brought him to the pavilion at the top of the mountain. After Qiu Siping left, Wang Lin gently moved his body and he arrived at the pavilion as well. He waved his sleeve, which caused a gentle wind that blew away all the dirt on the stone chair, upon which he sat down. Although he left after Qiu Siping, he arrived the same time. Qiu Siping's expression remained calm, but his heart was shocked and his pupils shrank, but they quickly returned to normal. He knew that this must be a warning from Wang Lin, to warn him that even if he tries some trick to escape, he won't get away. In truth, this was Wang Lin's intention as well. Qiu Siping now had his full attention. In fact, anything related to helping him form his nascent soul would interest him. After all, Wang Lin was already at the late stage of core formation. The nascent soul was an important matter and forming it should always be at the back of his mind. Once he formed his nascent soul, then all that was left for him to do was go back to the country of Zhao and make it bleed. To turn the country of Zhao's sky blood red and to cover the ground in blood. He would make all of the cultivators of the country of Zhao never forget that bloody day, and make all of his enemies pay their lives as sacrifices for his ancestors. He wanted to kill everyone in the Tang family, from the elders to the children. He wouldn't leave even a single animal alive. He wanted old man Jima to die without a resting place and all of his disciples to die a miserable death. He wanted all of those people that secretly helped the Tang family to be punished. He wanted all of them to pay a price they couldn't withstand. More importantly, he wanted to rip the soul out of Tang XIAN. He wanted to skin him, cut him to pieces, and anything else he could think of to make him pay for the 400 years of suffering he made Wang Lin endure. Qiu Siping waved his right hand and a bottle of wine and 2 cups appeared. He personally poured both cups, then took one up and drank a sip. He smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator, this is a high-quality wine made from the canyun fruit from the northern part of the Sea of Devils. With just one sip, one will savor it for a long time. Why doesn't fellow cultivator try it?" Wang Lin didn't urge the other to answer his question. He took up the cup and carefully examined it, as if there was something very interesting about the wine. The high-quality wine in the cup was a crystal-clear jade green color. Very beautiful. Qiu Siping sipped his wine for a long time, and after seeing that Wang Lin seemed to have no interest in such things, he warily smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator, if it was someone else that asked me about this matter, I definitely wouldn't tell them. But you are different. Both you and I are at the late stage of core formation, and we both dream of reaching that high and far-away nascent soul stage. As for the matter about the nascent souls stuck in Guishi, one of them is my master." With that, Qiu Siping's gaze fell on Wang Lin. Wang Lin looked at the cup a little more before putting it down. He blandly said, "Killing your master? It's not a big deal. I have done it before too." Qiu Siping let out a laugh and said, "Not to keep this from fellow cultivator, but he didn't have any good intentions when he accepted me as his disciple. He and my senior martial brother are both nascent soul cultivators. When they both were in closed-door training, I secretly sabotaged them. Thinking about it now, they have been in Guishi for 30 years. Based on my calculations, those two should be almost completely taken over by the demons, which means this is the perfect time to take their nascent souls. With one for each of us, the chances of us breaking through to nascent soul will be greatly increased." Wang Lin raised his eyebrows. He pondered for a while, then slowly said, "I don't see what this has to do with knowing ancient restrictions." Qiu Siping let out a wry smile. He drank the rest of his wine, then said, "The place my master is cultivating is an ancient cultivation cave. He accidentally found it and made it his own. I was able to sabotage them during this closed-door cultivation because I have prepared for it for years. I have spent many years studying the ancient restrictions in the cave. But after the cave is closed, opening it up again is very troublesome. I didn't expect that a restriction triggered by the demon would cause other restrictions to trigger. That's what's making it almost impossible to get into the cave right now." Wang Lin slightly frowned and began to ponder. Qiu Siping slapped his bag of holding with his right hand and took out a few pieces of jade and placed them on the table. He said, "These are some of the restriction symbols I copied from the cave. With your knowledge of ancient restrictions, you should be able to tell if they are fake or not." After hearing that, Wang Lin picked up a piece of jade and scanned it with his divine sense. After a short while, he put it down and picked up another piece of jade. Much later, all the pieces of jade were scanned by him. The symbols inside the jades were for a protection restriction. It should be a restriction used to guard a location. Qiu Siping asked. Fellow cultivator, what do you think? Wang Lin pondered for a long time and raised his head. He looked at Qiu Siping and asked, what cultivation level are those two nascent soul cultivators at? Qiu Siping immediately replied, my master is at the early stage of nascent soul, while my senior martial brother only just formed his. If fellow cultivator can open up the cave, then my master's nascent soul belongs to you. Wang Lin pondered a while longer, then said, I can't decide on this matter immediately. I'll think about it for a few days, then make a decision. Qiu Siping didn't mind. He nodded his head and said, that is understandable. I also need a few days to prepare some magical treasures. Since you and I have turned from enemies to friends, I want to apologize again for all of the misunderstandings that happened before. With that, he stood up, took a few steps back and bowed toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained the same, but he had already been on guard. Qiu Siping's actions in his mind showed that he could let bygones be bygones. But with Wang Lin's personality now, there was no way he would be fooled by such actions. He stood up, clasped his hands and said, fellow cultivator, since this is the case, let's meet back here in 7 days. I'll take my leave. Qiu Siping smiled. He nodded and also clasped his hands. Wang Lin's body jumped, turned into a rainbow and disappeared. After Wang Lin left, the smile on Qiu Siping's face disappeared. A cold look flashed across his eyes. He blinked a few times, then moved in the opposite direction of Wang Lin. But what he didn't notice was that there was a transparent creature that saw his expression clearly and quietly followed him after he left. Not long after, Wang Lin returned to XIAN City. Through the Devil Su Ligua, he could closely monitor Qiu Siping. Wang Lin didn't care if the Guishi nascent soul cultivator really was Qiu Siping's master or not. As long as he could confirm that there was a nascent soul cultivator stuck in Guishi within that ancient cultivation cave, it was more than enough. As for 7-day delay, Wang Lin wanted to use Su Ligua to check if the whole thing about nascent soul cultivator stuck in Guishi was true. After returning to the cave in XIAN City, Wang Lin sat down cross-legged. He touched his bag of holding and 2 items appeared in his hand. One of them was Yun Fei's bag of holding, and the other was the mysterious pill furnace. Wang Lin scanned the bag of holding with his divine sense, and found that it was filled with a lot of junk. He ignored it after one scan and took out some jades. He checked them one by one. After checking them for a while, Wang Lin's expression slightly changed. These jades described a series of alchemy recipes and procedures. Together, they formed the knowledge of a master alchemist. When he took out a piece of white jade and tried to scan it with his divine sense, he was stunned. There was a restriction placed on the jade that prevented people from checking what was inside it. Wang Lin became a little interested. He picked up the jade and looked at it with the divine soul eyes that could see through restrictions. Immediately, his eyes started to glow and turned slightly oval-shaped. Many strange restriction symbols flew across his eyes. After a long time, Wang Lin raised his right finger and pointed at the air. He pointed at several other spots in the air as well. Suddenly, a thin line appeared and connected the locations he had pointed to, forming a 2 overlapping triangles pattern. The moment the pattern appeared, he reached out his hand and grabbed the pattern and placed it on the jade. Immediately, the jade started to shine a bright light. It shined brighter and brighter, until it reached its peak, then dimmed. The jade now had changed from a white jade to a black jade. Wang Lin scanned the jade again. This time he could easily see what was inside it. After watching it for a while, he sneered in his heart. It seemed that this Yun Fei really did deserve to die. Before, when she first met Wang Lin, she tried to trade the containing folk remedies for her life. After Wang Lin saw that piece of jade, he didn't mind. Although a few pills were tempting to him, it wasn't a big deal. If it was before he received the inheritance, then he might have tried to craft one, but after receiving the inheritance with the herbs needed, he would achieve similar results by taking them directly. But now, after he saw the real jade, he could tell that although the material for the recipes were the same, the ratios were slightly different. These small changes could determine the life and death of the person that took the pill. In addition, within the real jade, besides the pill recipes, there were descriptions of the pills, and with that, Wang Lin realized that there was a significant difference between making the pills and consuming the materials directly. The thoughts he had before were completely wrong. If he had the materials before him, there was a difference between refining them to a pill and taking them directly. This alchemy was using the different effects of the materials and fused them to cause a different effect. It was not strange that Wang Lin didn't know any of this. The ancient gods rarely ever made pills, and even if they did, all they would do was mash all the materials together to swallow. And all of his previous experiences had almost nothing to do with alchemy. Only with Li Muwen did he ever talk about alchemy, but the Wang Lin back then was focused on forming his core, so he didn't ask much about it. He put the jade away like a treasure. He had decided that he had to master this alchemy. He took a deep breath and looked at the pill furnace. He took out his bag of holding and tried to put it in, but he found that, no matter what, he couldn't place the pill furnace inside it. This raised Wang Lin's interest greatly. After watching it for a bit, Wang Lin didn't act rashly, but held the pill furnace in his arm. He slammed his bag of holding and a small white flag appeared. He took out the flag and started to refine it, while keeping an eye on Qiu Siping through Su Ligua. Su Ligua was currently very excited. He felt that his place in his master's heart was far above number 2. This made him extremely proud. It had to be said that the appearance of number 2 made him feel very worried. Even he was a bit wary of how fierce number 2 was. But because he was the first to follow master, he felt that he couldn't be outdone by number 2. Otherwise he would have to worry when, one day, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 90 would appear and beat him. That would make him feel worse than Wang Lin just killing him. Su Ligua secretly decided to himself that he would not allow that to happen. He was still number 1. He must keep his current position. With that in mind, Su Ligua had become much more obedient and worked hard to finish basically anything Wang Lin asked him to do. Secretly, he had also gotten rid of his lazy ways and became more hardworking. He also wasn't picky about his food anymore. As long as it was a soul, he would rush up to steal it. Meanwhile, after every catch, the part that had to be turned into Wang Lin made him want to go crazy, as if each portion was digging part of his flesh away. But overall, compared to before, he had become much more obedient. He was now following closely behind Qiu Siping. No matter how fast Qiu Siping flew, he could easily keep up. While he was following Qiu Siping, he was still savoring the taste of that black-clothed person. That black-clothed person was at the mid-stage of core formation. It took him a lot of effort to finally eat that person's soul. As for that person's core, since Master didn't ask for it, he secretly ate it. He stared at Qiu Siping before him. A bit of a greedy thought started to form in his mind. If only Master would beat the crap out of this late-stage core formation cultivator and reward it to him, that would be perfect. In his opinion, this person was very cunning. He almost never moved in a straight line, but made many twists and turns and constantly turned around to check behind him, so it wasn't hard for Su Ligua to follow. Su Ligua casually followed behind him and thought, "Didn't know that flying could have so many methods and tricks. In the future, when I compete with number 2, I'll try using them." Just at that moment, Qiu Siping suddenly slowed and landed on the ground. Qiu Siping looked around. Besides the natural fog that existed in the Sea of Devils, there was nothing else around. After Qiu Siping landed, he sneered, "Fellow cultivator, you've stayed hidden for so long already, might as well come out." Devil Su Ligua was stunned. He was currently standing behind Qiu Siping and was shocked by his shout. He thought that it was bad that he had found out about him. He was about to back away when he suddenly stopped, because Qiu Siping turned around and stared at his direction. Su Ligua's face became fierce. If he were to fight with Qiu Siping and consume Qiu Siping's core, he will become stronger. Even if Master asked, he could say that it was Qiu Siping who attacked first. He had to devour Qiu Siping first. He was about to move when he suddenly stopped again because Qiu Siping turned around to another direction and shouted again, "Fellow cultivator, if you don't show yourself now, I'll have to make my move." Devil Su Ligua was very confused and thought, "I'm right here, didn't you just see me earlier? How come you still say I didn't show myself?" He became angry and moved toward Qiu Siping. When he was less than 10 feet away, he thought, "Act. The moment you act, I'll devour you. Even if I can't devour all of you, I'll devour half of you, so act already." However, after Qiu Siping waited for a while, he turned again. This time, the slow-to-react Su Ligua found that something was wrong, and once again moved in front of Qiu Siping. After watching for a while, he shouted in his heart, "You bastard, you didn't even find me at all and dared to pretend you did." Qiu Siping waited for a while. He finally determined that there was no one around and that no one had followed him, but he was still worried, so he sat down cross-legged to wait for time to pass. Su Ligua angrily floated on the side, wondering if he should disobey his master's order and just fight this person. This person was simply too daring. He dared to mess with the great Su Ligua, but after mulling over it for a long time, he finally suppressed his anger. Right now was a very important time. If he were to make a mistake now, number 2 will surpass him. He decided to wait for his position to solidify more, until something like this won't even matter anymore. Time passed by and 2 days passed. In these 2 days, Wang Lin didn't leave the cave at all, but focused on refining the flag. He had laid countless restrictions on it. The white flag floating before him now had countless black spots on it. With a glance, one could see about 200 to 300 black spots. On the flag were clusters of 9 spots. None of the clusters were repeats of another. For this restriction flag, aside from some of the materials being really hard to gather, the refining process wasn't too difficult. Any cultivator that could use restrictions could refine one, but the knowledge required was great. If a normal cultivator created this flag, the restrictions placed on it would be so weak that even if the flag was successfully created, it wouldn't be powerful. In addition, this restriction flag was just like an restriction itself. It all depended on the thought process of the person who laid it. If the creator could place 999,999 consecutive attack restrictions with no similarity to each other, then the flag created would contain unimaginable attack power. Conversely, if 999,999 consecutive defensive restrictions were placed, then it would also contain unimaginable defensive power. Similarly, if the goal was to trap the enemy, then after reaching 999,999 restrictions, the trapping ability would be considered terrifying. Basically, the power of the restriction flag depends on what the creator wants from it. It sounds easy in theory, but to get to that state is very difficult. For example, with 999 restrictions as the first level, every 9 restrictions formed a group, meaning you need 111 different restrictions. If one wanted to go a single route, they would have to place 111 different attack restrictions on the flag, which could get very difficult. Although, if they possessed a deep understanding of restrictions, it was possible. But what about the second level, which required 9,999 restrictions? That meant that there were 1,111 groups, and the difficulty of making it for a single route became 10 times higher. Not to even mention the third level, which required 99,999 restrictions. It was 100 times more difficult than the first level because not many people possessed that many restrictions of purely one type. As for the final level, it required 999,999 restrictions. The difficulty was 1,000 times higher. A 999,999 restriction flag was already a mythical item, and within the memories Wang Lin obtained, they do exist however, there had never been a 999,999 restriction flag made purely with attack or defense restrictions. Purely offensive or defensive restriction flags at most reached the third level, but their power could almost rival a final level restriction flag with 999,999 restrictions, and in certain aspects even surpass it. So to say, the process of creating a restriction flag was simple, but if one wanted to create a powerful restriction flag, it was very difficult. The restriction flag Wang Lin was making was not a single route flag. He was including attack, defense, guard, searching, trapping, and such restrictions. This was the only way for him to quickly make a restriction flag. Wang Lin knew that within this sea of devils, he might get into a life-threatening crisis at any moment. So he must quickly make this restriction flag to test its power, then decide if he should spend the time to make a single route restriction flag. After all, he had 3 ink stones, so he could make 3 restriction flags in total. Wang Lin became focused. His hand moved and formed another restriction. At the same time, he used his connection with Su Ligua and checked on what Qiu Siping was up to. Qiu Siping sat at that place for 2 days, then suddenly disappeared from the spot. Su Ligua panicked and quickly dove underground. After going very deep underground, he saw Qiu Siping's figure. There was a cave buried deep underground in that deserted place. Although the cave wasn't large, it was very well hidden. Su Ligua was able to easily enter the cave. None of the restrictions were triggered by him at all. After entering the cave, he saw Chiu Siping flipping through books. The current room was like a sea of books, with books densely packed everywhere. Most of them were very ancient and not in the form of a piece of jade, but carved into bamboo. Chiu Siping carefully read each book and gently put them away. Suddenly, his face lit up and he quickly took a scroll made of bamboo to the side and opened it on the table, then carefully examined it. Su Ligua was about to move forward when suddenly, a gentle light came out from the room. It blocked outsiders from entering. The moment the light flashed, Chiu Siping suddenly looked up. He scanned the area with his divine sense but found nothing. However, he still kept constantly looking around trying to find something. After a long time, he lowered his head and examined the bamboo, but his right hand had formed a seal, ready to attack at any time. With the soft light blocking Su Ligua, he couldn't get closer for a better look. He tried very hard, but could only see the small words ancient restriction on the bamboo. After 3 hours, Chiu Siping frowned. He closed the bamboo with a questioning expression. After he put the bamboo away, he searched for a while longer and took 2 gray pieces of jade, then made his way out of the room. In the stone room next door, he sat cross-legged and placed a piece of the gray jade on his forehead, then began to meditate. Time passed by. Of the 7 days until the meeting, 5 days had passed. On noon of the 5th day, Chiu Siping suddenly opened his eyes and put the jade into his bag of holding. His hand formed a seal and shot out a beam of light that landed on the wall. Suddenly, the whole wall made cracking sounds as it opened, revealing a conclave table. On the table were 3 figures. The one in the middle had white hair and eyes filled with rage, revealing a sense of majesty. At each side stood 1 male and 1 female. The male's face was sullen and his eyes were cold. He looked to be around 20 years old. The female had a very beautiful face and graceful figure. Her eyes showed hints of sadness, making her appearance more vivid. Chiu Siping silently looked at the 3 figures. When his gaze fell on the female, his eyes were filled with tenderness, but when his gaze fell on the old man, his eyes were filled with hatred. Old commander, elder brother, I have finally found someone who knows how to use ancient restrictions. You guys never would have thought that I would be able to enter that place to meet you again. This time that treasure will be mine. Chiu Siping suddenly let out a laugh. His laughter contained a hint of madness. He reached out his hand and carefully stroked the female figure's face and muttered, I will bring you back to life, even if the price is the entire sea of devils. He took a deep breath and withdrew his right hand. He sent out another beam of light and the wall closed again. Wang Lin sat cross-legged in the cave. He saw all of this through Su Ligua. He pondered for a while and made a decision. On the night 2 days later, Wang Lin laid the last restriction on the flag. Suddenly, the little flag moved and the black dots that covered it started to expand. The flag turned from white to completely black. Slivers of ancient atmosphere were released from the flag. The restrictions flashed one by one on the flag, forming mysterious golden symbols. The symbols rotated around the pole of the flag and slowly climbed upward. Soon, the entire flag was covered in golden symbols. At this point, there were still numerous symbols still appearing from the flag. They formed a line that wrapped around it. Meanwhile, in the star field tens of thousands of kilometers above the thick clouds above XIAN City, among the stars a red cloud started to gather. The red cloud started to swell. It became larger and larger, until it reached hundreds of kilometers in diameter. Within the red cloud, slivers of gas started to rain down. The moment the gas touched the thick cloud above the Sea of Devils, it started to sizzle and melt, as if hot iron was touching snow. In the moment, in the eastern part of the inner part of the Sea of Devils, a person walked out of a mountain made of skulls. The person was covered with the smell of death and his figure couldn't clearly be seen. He raised his head and looked at the thick cloud, as if he could see through it, and saw the red cloud above it. He muttered, "Divine retribution? Not possible. Since the ancient cultivation world was destroyed by a disaster, there shouldn't be any more divine retribution. All of the cultivators now fool the heavens to cultivate. How could it lead to divine retribution? Could it be that there are ancient cultivators that didn't die? If that is true, then they are a very high-quality supplement." After he finished speaking, His body suddenly moved toward where the red cloud was formed. In the eastern part of the Sea of Devils was a basin. Within this basin was sea water. It had to be said that it was not the season for the cloud to turn into sea water yet, so it was a very incredible sight. The sea water suddenly started to move violently. Suddenly, a man wearing a blue robe appeared from within the water, causing many waves to stir. Stepping on the waves, he slowly floated upward. He stared at the sky, revealing a shocked expression. Divine retribution? Since when did such exciting things happen in the Sea of Devils? This divine retribution should lure out all those old monsters that have been in hiding. He revealed a faint smile. His body floated above the water and he waved his hand, causing the water in the basin to float up into the air. This scene would shock anyone. The man melted back into the water. He moved his hand and the water moved toward the red cloud like a string of galloping horses. Comparing its speed to a nascent soul cultivator using instant teleportation, it was several times faster, and the water was getting faster and faster until it suddenly disappeared. In the southern point of the Sea of Devils, within a common city's treasure refining pavilion's third floor, a white-haired old man full of wrinkles was holding the bone of a beast, boasting to a foundation-building cultivator. "Brother, this thing really is a treasure. I'll tell you its 74th use, so listen carefully." That foundation-building cultivator was livid. If it wasn't against the rules of the treasure refining pavilion, then he would have spat on this old man, who had bothered him from the first floor all the way to the third floor. From his point of view, this old man was only at the 8th layer of chi condensation. What he particularly couldn't stand was that when the old man talked, his spit would fly out at his face, making him want to take out his magical treasure to attack the old man. Finally, he couldn't contain his anger any longer. He waved his sleeves and quickly left the treasure refining pavilion, but that old man was still bothering him. With so many people watching, the foundation building cultivator threw a low-quality spirit stone onto the ground, like he was giving food to animals, and took the beast bone with a cold smile on his face and left. He had already made up his mind that he was going to teach this old man a lesson tonight. The white-haired man picked up the low-quality spirit stone with a smile on his face. He blew the dirt off it and placed it in his pocket. Just at that moment, his expression suddenly changed as he turned to look at the clouds. The white-haired old man's foggy eyes began to shine and his slightly hunched back started to straighten up. His whole body suddenly became more lively. All of the cultivators in the city suddenly lost control of the spiritual power in their bodies, as if they were all having out-of-body experiences. This instilled fear in all of them. This feeling came quick and left just as quick. The white-haired old man's body suddenly moved and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, in the fog over the Sea of Devils, a laughter roared out as a 1,000-foot-long rock creature peeked out from the fog. Its giant head created enormous pressure. After glancing down at what was below, it opened its mouth and sucked in a large portion of the spiritual energy in a 100-kilometer radius. Afterward it burped, settled down, then left. On its back stood the white-haired old man. He shouted, "Bastard! I only asked you to carry me once and you ate that much spiritual energy. Aren't you afraid of being stuffed to death? If you do die, it will let me see what your meat tastes like." Meanwhile, Wang Lin was sitting cross-legged in his cave. He suddenly felt a sense of horror overtaking him. It was coming from above the Sea of Devils. Wang Lin frowned. He moved his hand and went to put away the restriction flag, but found that the flag was surrounded by a mysterious power and couldn't be put away. This strange scene made Wang Lin change his expression. He stood up and performed multiple techniques on the flag, but when the techniques fell on the flag, they were all blocked by the mysterious power. Not a single one could get through. At that moment, the sense of horror became even stronger. He opened his divine sight. Then his expression changed greatly. Through his divine eye, he could clearly see that a thin red line came out from the flag. It ignored the ceiling of the cave completely and went up into the sky. Wang Lin's face became dark. He immediately opened the cave's door and charged outside. Once he got outside, he steadied his body and looked at the sky. He saw the red line float into the sky and through the fog above the Sea of Devils. He pondered for a while, then pointed at his brow and brought the second devil out. After the devil appeared, with Wang Lin's order, it turned invisible. With Wang Lin's eyes, he could see its figure fly up into the fog. Wang Lin's face was gloomy. He looked around and saw many people walking around in XIAN City, but not one of them noticed the red line's existence. Wang Lin was very puzzled. That feeling of horror became stronger and stronger. The only other time Wang Lin had that feeling was when he saw the ancient god Tusi. He pondered a while. He flipped through the memories he inherited to try to find what was happening, and why this strange scene occurred when the restriction flag appeared. The second devil quickly flew through the fog. The devil was a flying beast before it was turned into a devil, so after turning into a devil, it became even faster. Even Wang Lin wouldn't be able to fly faster than the second devil. When Xiziping trapped it inside the black fog 6 days ago, if it had just one chance, then it would have disappeared without a trace using its speed. The second devil moved like lightning as it charged through the fog above the Sea of Devils. At that moment, above the Sea of Devils, the red fog, which was more than 10 kilometers wide, suddenly began to shrink. However, as it shrank, a bump appeared in the center. The bump began to grow bigger and bigger, as if it were full of water, and hung below the red fog. Then the bottom of the bump opened. A thunderous roar boomed and a pillar of red light that felt like it could destroy the entire Suzuka star fell from the sky. The moment the red pillar of light fell down, the red fog suddenly shrank from 10 kilometers wide to around 7 or 8 kilometers wide. The red fog that was lost was condensed into the pillar of light that was falling from the sky. The huge red pillar fell at an unimaginable speed. In almost the blink of an eye, it fell from the sky and into the fog above the Sea of Devils. It created sonic booms the entire time it fell and sent out waves of pressure through the surroundings as it passed by. Besides the pressure waves, many small cracks in space also appeared as it fell from the sky. There were so many cracks, the sky looked like a fractured mirror. When the red pillar fell onto the fog above the Sea of Devils, it caused the fog to start boiling and caused all the beasts inside it to run away screaming. Meanwhile, the fog above the Sea of Devils was evaporated into clouds and slowly floated upwards. It didn't slow down the red pillar at all. As the red pillar sank in more and more, all of the fog above the Sea of Devils, whether it was the inner sea or outer sea, began to concentrate around the red pillar. If one looked from the sky, they could see that the entire fog above the Sea of Devils formed a whirl with the red pillar at the center. The endless fog moved toward the center, and as a result, more and more black clouds floated out from the red pillar. Finally, when the red pillar had sunk about of the way through the fog above the Sea of Devils, all the fog covering the outer sea had gathered there. For the first time in countless years, the fog covering the sky of the outer sea was gone. Without the fog formed by the water that was in the sea before, sunlight shined for the first time on the outer sea. It illuminated the dark land, the unpleasant city, and the cultivators, whose faces were filled with panic. Some of the cultivators who had never felt such strong sunlight in their lives became excited. If one compared the Sea of Devils to a circle, then all of the fog at the edge of the circle was gone. All of that fog either gathered at the center or turned into black clouds by the red pillar. At that point, where the red pillar had been stopped inside the fog had shrunken down many sizes already. Then the fog formed a giant black pillar and slammed it toward the red pillar. Suddenly, when the two pillars collided, a shock wave was sent into the surroundings. Any living thing inside the fog that was hit by the shock wave was turned into dust. At the same time, the red pillar finally dissipated. But it was not over yet. The 7 or 8 kilometer red wide fog suddenly moved again and formed another red pillar that fell from the sky. This time, all of the red fog fell with the pillar. There was no red fog remaining in the sky anymore. All of it fell down with the red pillar. Because of the fog was gone in almost an instant, the new red pillar landed where the previous one disappeared. A thunderous roar that could be heard by every cultivator in the Sea of Devils was sent out, and at the same time, a large amount of black fog turned into black clouds and condensed in the sky. The red pillar still continued to fall after shrinking down to less than half its original size. The second devil had already retreated ever since he noticed that something was wrong. Wang Lin saw this shocking scene through the second devil. At that point, almost all of the cultivators in the Sea of Devils came out their homes. Even the ones in closed-door training stopped and came out to look at the sky. When Wang Lin saw the red pillar through the second devil, a phrase suddenly popped into his head from his inherited memories. Divine retribution. Wang Lin was mumbling to himself as he scanned through the memories he inherited for anything about divine retribution. In the ancient god Tusi's lifetime, he had encountered countless divine retributions. Only at the beginning was Tusi worried about divine retribution. After his body reconstructed 4 times, divine retribution stopped being a threat to him and turned into a really good supplement. Also, whenever the ancient god was about to become stronger, it would incur divine retribution, and sometimes they even used the strength of the divine retribution when creating magical treasures to determine their quality. The stronger the divine retribution meant the stronger the treasure, and if the divine retribution was too weak, that meant the treasure wasn't strong enough. Of course, this was only a really rough estimate and most of the time was very wrong. For example, the restriction flag Wang Lin had created. The power of the flag couldn't even compare to the divine retribution at all. The real cause of the divine retribution came from the ink stone. That ink stone had been inside the body of the ancient god for too long, and had gathered some of its spiritual energy inside. That was why the divine retribution that hadn't occurred in the cultivation world in such a long time appeared again. Similarly, divine retribution hadn't occurred for countless years, so even though it was only triggered by the creation of a magical treasure, it contained unimaginable power. All of this information flashed through Wang Lin's mind. He realized that it was the restriction flag that caused the divine retribution. Without a word, he charged back into the cave. The flag was floating in the room. He began performing many techniques on the flag, trying to put it away. With the information Wang Lin obtained from the inherited memories, if this flag were to get hit by the divine retribution, then it would be turned to dust. Wang Lin wouldn't let the treasure he had spent so much time making be destroyed by divine retribution. He performed many techniques to try to save the flag. Slowly, the mysterious power holding the flag started to loosen, but still hadn't let go. At the same time, a thunderous roar blared from the sky. For the first time ever in the Sea of Devils, there was no water in the sea or fog blocking up the sky, revealing a giant basin. With nothing to block its path, the red pillar fell down toward XIAN City at an unimaginable speed. All the cultivators in the city panicked and used all of their power to scatter. The red pillar fell. The moment it hit XIAN City, the giant creature's head exploded and every scale on its body was blown off by the red pillar's destructive power. Wang Lin was inside the cave when he felt a powerful force from all sides that caused him to cough up a mouthful of blood. He sighed and was about to give up. But at that moment, the mysterious force around the flag suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he grabbed the flag with his right hand. At the same time, he moved his body and rushed out of the scale just as XIAN City collapsed. But as he charged out, the red cloud formed a thin line and shot out from the collapsed XIAN City toward the restriction flag in Wang Lin's hand. The thread was simply too fast. Even if Wang Lin put the flag into his bag of holding, the result would only be the bag of holding being destroyed. At that moment, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and moved his right hand. Suddenly, the flag was in his left hand and an instrument not under his control appeared in his right hand. All of this happened right before the thread landed. The moment the thread landed on the instrument, the thread broke the instrument and set Wang Lin flying. However, after the instrument broke, a small amount of red thread shot out from it. This time, before he had time to react, the red thread landed on Wang Lin's right hand. Wang Lin's body quivered and he coughed up several mouthfuls of blood. Even the core in his body had shrunk a lot. Only with all that did he manage to contain the explosive power of that red thread. Wang Lin's face was pale. All of the spiritual energy in his body was in complete chaos, and he was solely relying on his core to contain the destructive force of that red thread. But he knew that his time was limited. If he couldn't quickly remove the red thread, then all of his spiritual energy will be used up by his core, then his core will collapse. His body would follow. Not even his soul would be able to escape the divine retribution's power. Currently, there were many cultivators escaping from XIAN City, so no one noticed Wang Lin's strange state. All of them were scattered in all directions. All of XIAN City was destroyed. At that moment, black rain began to fall from the sky. All of the fog that had been evaporated into clouds began to condense after the divine retribution was gone. Even though it was black rain, It was the first time it had rained in the Sea of Devils ever since the water had all turned into fog. This time, the divine retribution brought great change to the Sea of Devils. While the divine retribution killed some of the creatures living in the fog, many of them escaped from it. Even some of the great and powerful beasts that lived inside fog appeared in the Sea of Devils. The Sea of Devils should now be more appropriately be renamed to the Basin of Devils. Many uncommon beasts appearing triggered a series of battles. There were beasts killing cultivators and cultivators killing beasts. All of the cultivators knew that all of these beasts would have a core that could be used to make pills or be consumed directly to increase their cultivation. Also, because all of the fog disappeared, the entire Sea of Devils lost its natural barrier, so all of the cultivation countries around the Sea of Devils turned their sights there. It was a good thing that a few of the large sects that had been around for tens of thousands of years came out and managed to stabilize the situation. But secretly, many cultivators took advantage of this time to murder and steal treasures, causing the already confusing situation in the Sea of Devils to become even more confusing. But none of this had anything to do with Wang Lin. Right now, he could clearly feel the core in his body constantly shrinking. On the core was a red thread, rapidly absorbing all of its energy. If the core were to crack and break, the only road that would await Wang Lin was death. His current cultivation had already dropped from late-stage core formation to mid-stage core formation. Based on his calculations, he will drop from mid-stage to early stage in 3 hours, and then half an hour after that, his core will break. Wang Lin couldn't be bothered to worry about his meeting with Qiu Siping on the 7th day. His priority was to find a way to remove the red thread. Wang Lin's expression was grim. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent. In order to survive, he had to start a killing spree. It was too bad that he had used up all his spirit water in the land of the ancient god. Although he had gathered more in Qilan City, if he had enough, he could last a long time with just that. At that moment, a black-clothed middle-aged man appeared before Wang Lin. He moved toward Wang Lin and said, "Mid-stage core formation, it must be you." The moment his words reached him, red lightning flashed across Wang Lin's eyes. Although the man was at late-stage core formation, Wang Lin charged at him rather than retreat. The black-clothed man let out a mocking smile. Just as he was about to make a move, his body suddenly trembled and his eyes immediately dulled. Wang Lin instantly appeared before the man and removed the core from the black-clothed man's body and threw it into his mouth. He didn't even have time to pick up the man's bag of holding. He just quickly left. He spread out his divine sense like a starving wolf, hunting for his next target. Sun Fan was currently running away from two beasts with the power of late-stage core formation. If he slowed down the slightest, he would be eaten by them. With his tiny foundation-building cultivation, he didn't have the power to fight back. The two beasts came closer and closer. He could hear that the growl was right behind him. He let out a bitter smile and knew that he would not be able to escape this. But just then, a gust of wind blew by him, causing him to spin around in place. After he finally stabilized his body, he heard the miserable scream of the two beasts chasing him. He turned his head around and became dumbfounded on the spot. Sun Fan saw a white-haired youth, who was like a devil, reaching his hand into the beast and removing the core, then directly consuming it. The other beast was already dead on the side. The white-haired youth gave Sun Fan a cold look, then without a word, he charged into the distance. Although the Wang Lin had already left, Sun Fan didn't dare to move at all. That look the white-haired youth gave him was filled with killing intent. After a long time, he coughed up a mouthful of blood and quickly left. The demonic look of that white-haired youth would go on to haunt him for the rest of his life. Even after 700 years, after he had finally reached his dream of reaching the nascent soul stage, he was still terrified when he recalled that white-haired youth and would even wake up in the middle of the night because of him. In an area in the north were two small schools fighting over the core of a beast that was killed by the divine retribution. Flying swords and techniques filled the sky as they attacked each other. When the cultivators of both sides were in the heat of combat, a white-haired youth appeared. Without a word and with eyes glowing red like a demon's, red lightning flew out and shot through the cultivators of both sides. Meanwhile, the white-haired youth quickly moved through the cultivators. He reached out his hand at the abdomen of each core formation cultivator, took their cores and consumed them. In only about 10 breaths of time, all of the cultivators in that battle died. and the beast core that caused the whole fight was also consumed by this white-haired youth. His body turned into a blur as he shot into the distance. Whether it was beasts or cultivators, male or female, as long as they weren't at the nascent soul stage, they would be killed by Wang Lin. As he swallowed more and more cores, his own cultivation gradually stopped dropping, until his core finally stabilized. However, the problem wasn't solved at all. This stabilized state would only last a few hours. His core will soon start to rapidly shrink again, until it collapses. The only way to solve this problem was to keep killing people for their cores until enough spiritual energy was gathered to force that red thread out of his body. Therefore, he needed to kill a lot of people. Wang Lin's eyes had never been as full of killing intent as they were now. He knew that his current kill speed was far too slow for what he needed to accomplish. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He sent out his divine sense and charged towards some beasts from the fog that were 100 kilometers or so away. He slammed his bag of holding and his poisonous black sword appeared. As he killed the beasts and took their cores, Aegis didn't pause for a moment and continued to rush out. At the same time, his divine sense spread out, looking for locations with lots of cultivators or beasts. As he was flying, Wang Lin suddenly stopped. His divine sense found a large herd of beasts about 1,000 kilometers to the east. He immediately turned around and charged to the east. He quickly crossed the 1,000-kilometer distance. There were many beasts in the herd. When he arrived, he pointed at his brow and the second devil came out. It charged into the beast herd. Shortly after, the poisonous black sword moved as well. Even Wang Lin's G realm came out. All of these attacks charged into the beast herd. But a ferocious roar came from within the beast herd. A giant octopus slowly rose from the ground. Its black eyes became cold as it stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin took one look and found that this beast was around the power of a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, so he turned around and left. He had already encountered this many times. With a beast herd like this, there was bound to be some nascent soul-level beasts inside. Wang Lin's body flashed and quickly faded into the distance. The octopus let out a roar and quickly chased after him. Wang Lin didn't turn his head, he just quickly fled. After the octopus had chased him a certain distance, it hesitated for a while, then stopped chasing. It returned to the herd and ate a few beasts before returning back to the ground. Soon Wang Lin found a group of 7 cultivators about 2,000 kilometers away. 3 of them were at the core formation stage. The 7 of them had surrounded a beast and were currently attacking it. But their smiles quickly froze as a black light flashed by, killing all 7 of them. The 3 core formation cultivators had bloody holes in their abdomens. There was also a hole on the head of the beast. But at that moment, a low hum came from the distance. The Poison King's enchanted palace has set a decree to stop all killing in the area. Don't move. Wang Lin didn't hesitate. As those words were said, he started to back away. The voice let out a sneer. The owner of the voice moved his body and suddenly appeared in front of Wang Lin. At the same time, he waved his right hand and a powerful force pulled Wang Lin. Wang Lin's body suddenly floated backwards. His eyes flashed as he looked at the middle-aged man who wore a purple robe and had an indifferent face. After a few seconds, they arrived back at the bodies of the 7 cultivators. The person looked down and frowned. He coldly stared at Wang Lin and said, "Such savage behavior. Everyone else is killing people for treasures, while you're killing people for cores." Wang Lin's eyes flashed. This person was at the nascent soul stage based on the power he was releasing and the use of instant teleportation. Wang Lin speculated that this person couldn't be at the mid-stage of nascent soul. He was probably at the early stage. This person didn't come with a friendly intent. A cold light flashed across Wang Lin's eyes and he slammed his bag of holding. His poisonous black sword came out and floated above his head, releasing a cold light. The middle-aged man revealed a mocking look in his eyes. He moved his right hand and produced a black claw, which swiped toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin flipped the restriction flag with this right hand. The flag flew up and instantly grew very large, covering the surrounding 100 kilometers. The restrictions on it went off one by one. Dozens of restrictions quickly covered the black claw, and with some hissing sounds, the black claw was destroyed. The middle-aged man looked at the restriction flag and sneered. He swiped his right hand at the sky and a purple flying sword flew out of his sleeves. It charged at supersonic speed toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin didn't move. His two hands crossed together and he shouted, "Break!" The restriction flag immediately moved and restrictions flew out one by one, forming a black shield in front of Wang Lin. The moment the flying sword hit the shield, the restrictions moved onto the sword, and the entire flying sword was quickly covered in restrictions. The middle-aged man frowned. He didn't expect a mid-stage core formation cultivator to have such a strange magical treasure. His right hand slammed his bag of holding. A bronze tiger seal appeared in his hand. He held the seal in his hand and said a few chants. The seal suddenly let out a roar and grew to 7 or 8 feet tall. The bronze seal cracked in half and a black tiger jumped out. After the tiger appeared, it pounced toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin moved back a few steps, formed a seal with both of his hands and shouted, "Trap!" The moment he said those words, the restriction flag moved and the restrictions came one by one, forming chains. They came from all directions and formed a barrier before Wang Lin. When the tiger pounced on the chains, it rebounded. Meanwhile, another chain wall formed behind the black tiger. Both walls moved toward each other and connected to form a sphere. The black tiger was trapped inside. All of this happened in flash. The moment that the black tiger had pounced toward Wang Lin, it was trapped inside chains made of restrictions. The tiger continued to roar inside the cage, but it didn't seem to have any effect. The middle-aged man's face changed for the first time. He became serious and asked, "Whose disciple are you?" In his view, someone who had such a treasure must have some deep background, or there was no way a mere core formation cultivator would have such a powerful treasure. A bit of greed involuntarily entered his heart. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. It seemed the power of the flag was worth the divine retribution. This flag wasn't even a single route flag. If it was, it would be even more powerful. He coldly looked at the middle-aged man. The current situation was not good. When he was fighting the middle-aged man just now, his spiritual energy became unstable and his core shrunk a bit. If this continues, then his core will collapse soon. Wang Lin said in a dark tone, "My teacher is Gulen." The middle-aged man was stunned. He carefully looked Wang Lin and sneered. He didn't believe Wang Lin was Ancient Emperor's disciple, because Ancient Emperor disappeared into the chaotic broken stars 200 years ago. He was about to speak when his eyes suddenly expanded as he stared at Wang Lin. In Wang Lin's hand appeared a bag of holding, and on the bag was embroidered the word "Lan" in blue. Wang Lin waved his right hand and put away the bag. From the expression of the middle-aged man, Wang Lin deduced that he should know about this bag, or has at least heard about it. Wang Lin backed away. His hand formed a seal behind his back and the restriction flag backed away with him. After backing away 100 feet, he moved his hand again and the tiger that was trapped in the restriction was released. At that moment, Wang Lin's speed increased and he disappeared without a trace. The middle-aged man gloomily looked at the direction Wang Lin disappeared to. He wanted to chase after Wang Lin several times, but stopped himself. Even ignoring the bag, just the flag had caused him some fear. Plus, he knew that Wang Lin wasn't even going all out using it. Although he felt confident that he could kill a mere core formation cultivator, the treasure Wang Lin had was simply too strange. This caused his urge to chase after him to go down a lot. There was also that bag with the blue lawn embroidered on it. He knew that that label meant that it was something that belonged to Ancient Emperor. Most people would not know about this. He only saw it himself by accident, when Ancient Emperor visited the Poison King's enchanted place once. As a result, although Ancient Emperor had disappeared 200 years ago, his reputation was still there, as well as his sect, so he completely disposed of his thoughts of chasing after Wang Lin. After Wang Lin flew really far away, he quickly put away the restriction flag. With just that small fight, it used up a lot of spiritual power and his core shrank again. Based on his calculations, he must absorb more spiritual power, or the only road left for him will be death. Wang Lin took out all the spiritual liquid he had saved up while in Qilan City. There were only about 100 drops. After taking 10 drops, he managed to barely stop his core from shrinking anymore. After pondering for a while, he darkly sighed. He had almost run out of solutions to his problem. There was only one method left. Wang Lin clenched his teeth. He activated his Soul Devourer soul core and concentrated all of his soul on the core. Wang Lin only ever used this technique once, in the foreign battleground, to leave the decaying world. He had spent many years to split his soul into tiny individual pieces, so they can squeeze through cracks in space to leave the decaying world. That time he wasn't able to recover part of his soul, and even now the whereabouts of that part of his soul was still unknown. In addition, Wang Lin knew that after splitting his soul, his power would weaken a lot, and that he might never be able to form a complete soul again. But now, if he still used the normal method to kill people for their cores, it simply wasn't fast enough, so he had to risk splitting his soul again. But this time, luckily, he had his soul core. The danger to his soul after he split it was much smaller. Before, when he split his soul fragments had no attack power and were in a state of chaos. But at this point, because of his soul devourer core, to some degree, his soul fragments were the wandering souls from the decaying world. There was only a small difference in form and behavior. His soul, which was the size of dozens of core formation cultivator souls combined, gathered on the soul core and split from 1 to 10, 10 to 100, and 100 to 1,000. The soul fragments came out of Wang Lin's body one by one. Each soul fragment was in the form of red lightning. This had to do with Wang Lin's G realm. In fact, each soul fragment was a G realm soul fragment. 1,000 G realm soul fragments came out of Wang Lin's body and disappeared as they scattered in all directions. As for Wang Lin's root soul fragment, it stayed in his body. Right now, Wang Lin's soul was extremely weak. He slammed his bag of holding and the poisonous black sword came out and carved a hole in the ground. He sat down cross-legged in the hole, then took out the restriction flag, took a deep breath and held it up. The restriction flag fluttered without any wind. It suddenly grew in size and covered up everything in a 100-kilometer radius. Meanwhile, the restrictions came out one by one and landed in the surrounding area. Then, 9 giant restriction symbols floated out of the flag and motionlessly floated in the surrounding area. After spreading out the restrictions, Wang Lin let out a breath and began to digest the cores he had consumed earlier. As for his soul fragments, when they met a cultivator, as long as they are below the nascent soul stage, then the soul fragment would kill the cultivator and steal their core. Time slowly passed. Whenever a soul fragment managed to get a core, it would immediately come back, drop it off, then head out again. As a result, the already chaotic sea of devils, in which frequent killing was already occurring, became even more chaotic. Even some of the mid-sized sects were starting to move. After 2 days, Wang Lin sat cross-legged inside the area covered by the restriction flag. His face was pale and his core had already shrunken to the size of a thumbnail. His cultivation had dropped to the early stage of core formation. All of the energy from the cores his soul fragments had brought back had been stored in another location. He was preparing for the critical moment, the moment to give that red thread the fatal blow. Wang Lin formed a seal with his hand and shouted, "Soul fragments, return!" in a husky voice. Suddenly, all of the soul fragments, no matter where they were, stopped and started to return. In the sea of devils, one could see lines of red lightning flash across the sky, all heading in the same direction. As each piece of red lightning passed through the restriction flag and returned to Wang Lin's body, his soul became more and more powerful. Once all the soul fragments had returned to his body, a flash of cold light flashed across Wang Lin's eyes as he controlled the spiritual power inside his body and attacked the red thread. 3 days later, in the area covered by Wang Lin's restriction flag, the flag suddenly shrank, until it returned to its regular size and landed in the hand of a white-haired youth. Wang Lin waved his right hand and returned the restriction flag to his bag of holding. His face was no longer pale. In these 3 days he didn't manage to eliminate the red thread completely, but managed to surround it with spiritual power, thus solving the crisis of his core being destroyed. Meanwhile, using all of the spiritual he had gathered, his core grew again. Not only did his cultivation not decrease, it increased to the absolute peak of core formation late stage. Wang Lin believed that the only way to get rid of this red thread was for his cultivation to reach the nascent soul stage, and as a result, he would be able to use a technique from hunchback men called poison transfer to transfer the red thread to someone else's body, which will solve his problem. Wang Lin pondered for a while. His eyes revealed a bold look. He closed his eyes and tried to sense where the devil Su Ligua was, but because of the distance between them, he could only get a general direction. He quickly moved towards Su Ligua's location. This time Wang Lin used the earth escape technique in order to move faster. With the Earth Escape technique, Wang Lin's speed exploded. The only downside of this technique was that it consumed a lot of spiritual power, which was why Wang Lin didn't use it before solving the problem of the red thread. He moved quickly while using his divine sense to check Su Ligua's location. After 7 days, he finally arrived at the place they agreed to meet, 3,000 kilometers away from Qilan City. He could feel that the devil Su Ligua was nearby. That was indeed the case. When Wang Lin charged toward the peak of the mountain, Su Ligua came out of the pavilion and entered Wang Lin's brow again. Meanwhile, Qiu Siping's shadow appeared within the pavilion. Right now, he looked very beaten up and his breath was unsteady. Wang Lin moved into the pavilion and sat down on the stone chair, examining Qiu Siping. Qiu Siping let out a wry smile and said, "Fellow cultivator, I waited for over half a month here for you. If I didn't believe that you were someone that would keep their promise, I would have already left." Wang Lin revealed an apologetic look and said, "There was a great change in the Sea of Devils, causing people to kill each other, and the sects came out to try to gain more power, resulting in a delay on my trip here. I have made you wait a long time." Qiu Siping let out a sigh and wryly smiled. He said, "It's fine. I have killed quite a few greedy cultivators and have also gained some benefits. Fellow cultivator, how do you feel about us going to that place right now?" Wang Lin stood up and nodded his head. He said, "That's fine. Fellow cultivator, please lead the way." Qiu Siping's eyes lit up and he smiled. "Fellow cultivator, you and I are now considered allies. May I ask what your name is?" Wang Lin looked at Qiu Siping and said, "Wang Lin." Qiu Siping clasped his hands and said, "Brother Wang, the distance to that place is quite large. If you don't mind, we can take my cloud boat." As he finished speaking, he slammed his bag of holding and a cloud boat appeared.